Hi everyone, thanks for returning. Let's unravel another horrible case. The case of Riley Whitelaw. Riley Whitelaw was born on January 20, 2005 in Colorado Springs, El Paso County, USA, the only child of Courtney, a single mother. From an early age, Riley demonstrated kindness, empathy, and respect for others. Her bright smile brought warmth and joy to everyone around her. Riley loves to draw and wants to learn to play the guitar. After attending the Air Force Academy, she proved herself to be an excellent student. Among her classmates, she was known for her calm demeanor, confidence, and leadership skills. When Riley was a teenager, her mother met a man named Chris Johnson. Their relationship quickly developed into love, leading to the decision to marry. Riley, who always wanted the best for her mother, did her best to adapt to the changes Chris brought to their home. Chris, who never had the opportunity to be a father, welcomed Riley with open arms and treated her like his own daughter, expressing that he felt lucky to be a part of her life. In 2021, Riley is 16 years old, she is more mature, and gets a part-time job at a branch of an American company that operates the second-largest pharmacy chain in the country. This pharmacy not only sells medicines and healthcare products but also provides photography services. Riley only works 2 days a week because she still has to continue her studies. Despite her busy schedule, she feels happy and enthusiastically accepts the challenge. At first, everything goes smoothly. Riley enjoys her job and always completes her tasks. She quickly gains the appreciation of customers and builds good relationships with her colleagues. Among Riley's co-workers is a man named Joshua Johnson. Not much is known about his background, but he is in his 30s and has just been released from prison. The appearance of Riley, a young girl at the pharmacy, changes his life. Joshua, who is withdrawn and hot-tempered, is Riley's complete opposite. Despite their differences, Joshua develops feelings for her. Everyone around him notices this and realizes his unusual intentions, considering Riley's age. However, he insists that he will wait until she is an adult before asking her out. Joshua cannot hide his feelings for Riley for long and begins to show his attention to her, trying to win her over. He eventually openly confesses his love for her. However, Riley does not have feelings for him. After being rejected, Joshua becomes hurt and begins to act out, trying to hurt Riley whenever possible. During a class where he is supposed to teach her and another coworker about how to work in a photo lab, he completely ignores her. This behavior frustrates Riley, as it negatively affects the quality of her work. Joshua refuses to answer her questions or offer any help. Initially, Riley was upset and often reflected on Joshua's behavior toward her, wondering what she had done to deserve such negative treatment. However, over time, Joshua crossed the line. First, he touched her inappropriately. And then he slapped her. Riley felt both angry and offended by these actions. She realized that Joshua was invading her and her personal space. Riley chose to speak up about the incident. Gathering her courage, she informed the pharmacy manager, Justin Sunni, about what had happened. Justin helped to remind Joshua. Joshua remained silent and pretended to understand. Nothing else was done to protect Riley. Not wanting to worry her mother, Riley decides to keep the meeting between her, Joshua, and her manager Justin a secret. However, she still shared with Courtney the impact Joshua's behavior had had on her. For a while, they barely worked together, and Riley tried to forget about the incident. However, when she decided to increase her hours, she found herself scheduled to work the same shift as Joshua. In early 2020, she met Jacob Lee, who was 2 years older than her. As their relationship developed, they decided to date. Suddenly, Jacob decided to work part-time at the pharmacy, just like Riley. In early spring 2022, Jacob started working, allowing them to spend more time together. Like Riley, Jacob quickly became friends with all the employees, except Joshua. Although there were no major conflicts between them, Joshua always seemed uncomfortable whenever they had to work together. Jacob wasn't the only one who noticed. The second manager, Crystal Ismail, also noticed that Joshua was jealous of Jacob because he was Riley's boyfriend. Joshua saw Jacob as his rival. Joshua still didn't give up on his love and continued to try to get closer to Riley. Feeling frustrated by his harassment, Riley finally asked for a change in her working hours. After a while, Riley needed more money and wanted to work overtime. Her boss informed her that she would have to work the same shift as Joshua because she had no other choice. Riley shared her concerns with Jacob. Riley shares her concerns with Jacob, but he doesn't take her words seriously and doesn't realize the severity of the situation. This disappoints Riley. On June 11, 2022, Riley was at the pharmacy where Crystal was in charge of management, and everything was going smoothly. Although Joshua was on the same shift as Riley, he took advantage of his coworker's distraction to enter the break room. First, he placed a busy sign on the bathroom door, then blocked the view of one of the surveillance cameras with containers, and finally taped the window. The exact details of what happened next remain unclear, but when it was time for Riley's break, she entered the break room where Joshua was hiding, ready to put her plan into action. At approximately 5:44 p.m., surveillance camera footage captured a customer named Alicia Shanky in the store when she heard a woman scream. Seconds later, she heard the door close, but Alicia ignored it. She made her purchase and left the store. Meanwhile, in the break room, Joshua attacked Riley with a knife, and the attack was both quick and brutal, and Riley died instantly. Crystal, the store manager, becomes concerned when Riley does not return to work after her break and becomes even more suspicious when she notices that Joshua is also missing. She quickly goes outside the door where the trash can is. As she approaches, she sees someone's bare feet and, feeling scared, she rushes back to the pharmacy, locking the front desk door to prevent anyone from entering. This allows Joshua to dispose of Riley's blood-stained items in the trash without being seen. He then returns home. A few minutes later, Crystal mustered up the courage and went outside again, but the person was gone. Unable to find Riley, she decided to contact the manager, Justin. She also called Jacob, but he had no information on Riley's location. Justin then went to the pharmacy to investigate the situation. It was a little after 6 p.m. when he arrived. When he arrived, he quickly began reviewing the surveillance camera footage and saw Riley walking towards the break room. In an earlier recording, he noticed Joshua stacking boxes and containers to block the camera's view. Justin walked into the break room, quickly opened the door, and turned on the lights. He was horrified to see blood everywhere. And in the corner of the room, he found Riley's body. Shocked, Justin called the police at 6:05 p.m. 10 minutes later. Officers arrived at the pharmacy, where they discovered Riley's body. She was found on the floor with her badge and headphones nearby. In addition to the severe neck injury, she had suffered several other injuries. Alicia, a customer at the pharmacy during the day, passed by the scene that evening and noticed police and patrol cars. She stopped to report the screams she had heard earlier. Police officers Steve Alonso and Mike Lee began their investigation. Meanwhile, someone informed Riley's mother, Courtney, of the tragic news. The distraught mother rushed to the pharmacy and was stunned when she arrived at the crime scene. When asked by police if she knew anyone who Riley's enemies were or who might have committed such an act, Courtney did not remember Joshua. She believed her daughter was the victim of a robbery and did not know that her daughter was actually murdered by a coworker. Police collected evidence at the crime scene and sent the body for forensic examination. The Riley had 42 stab wounds, and there were similar injuries on her hands, suggesting she attempted to defend herself. Experts concluded that she died from a lack of oxygen. Joshua fled the city early in the morning but was stopped by a patrol officer as he headed toward the New Mexico border. The officer was unaware of his actions and arrested him based solely on his appearance, as his face was covered in cuts, scrapes, and bruises. When asked about his injuries, Joshua claimed that he had been attacked in a store in Colorado Springs. However, when the patrol officer contacted Colorado Springs police, they discovered that Joshua was actually the suspect in Riley's murder and not the victim. Afterwards, he was arrested and brought back to the city. Currently, the pharmacy's representatives are not making any statements to the media. Police have denied permission to share information that might disrupt the ongoing investigation. The pharmacy has closed its doors and is no longer serving customers. Nearby, the community has set up a makeshift memorial for Riley, adorning it with numerous flowers, letters, and gifts from those who are grieving. Joshua admitted during his initial police interview that he was in love with Riley. He admitted to being in the break room with her but claimed that the incident was accidental. This confession led police to identify him as the person who had been near Crystal at the dumpster. Despite the evidence against him, Joshua maintained his innocence and denied obstructing the view of the security camera. Police later discovered his DNA on the murder weapon. After obtaining a court warrant to search his home, they found a black hoodie with blood and traces of DNA belonging to Riley. Joshua was charged with first-degree murder and held without bail in El Paso County, with his trial scheduled for June 2022. Riley's funeral was held on June 23, 2022. Her mother received many letters of support from classmates, pharmacy customers, and others. On November 15, 2022, Joshua pleaded not guilty to all charges at his preliminary hearing. The trial was originally scheduled to begin on March 6, 2023, but the defense requested additional time to prepare and requested that Joshua undergo a mental health evaluation to determine whether he was competent to stand trial. As a result, the trial was postponed. The evaluation later determined that Joshua was sane. He remains in custody at the El Paso County Jail, with bail set at $10 million. In late September 2023, after all attempts to postpone the trial, Joshua finally appeared in court and faced Riley's relatives. On the first day of the trial, the prosecutor explained to the jury that Joshua and Riley both worked at a pharmacy and detailed the events that took place there. The defense maintained that Joshua happened to be at the crime scene. They presented that Joshua entered the break room and found Riley lying on the floor. At that point, he was attacked by an unknown assailant, causing him to flee for safety, despite feeling guilty for leaving Riley behind. However, witness testimonies have made it clear that Joshua's account is incorrect. One of the longest testimonies came from Justin, who discovered the body and was the pharmacy manager that first contacted the police. The prosecutor's office also called Riley's mother, Courtney, to testify. She shared insights about her daughter, describing her as someone who loved to help others. Courtney mentioned that Riley had expressed concerns about Joshua's behavior on several occasions. She recalled one incident when Riley was working with Joshua in the photo services area, where he touched her inappropriately. This led Riley to speak with her supervisors, resulting in her being allowed to change her work schedule. In October 2023, after arguments from both the prosecution and defense had concluded, after an hour of deliberations, the jury reached a verdict. Joshua Johnson was convicted of first-degree murder. The judge expressed gratitude to everyone who contributed to achieving justice, especially the Colorado Springs police. After the trial, some expressed their anger toward Joshua, while others chose to remember Riley as a kind, young girl who tragically lost her life because of his actions. On the podium in the auditorium, there were 3 items: an empty vase, a bag containing 42 purple stones, and a small bouquet of sunflowers. Riley's loved ones had brought these items on purpose. The stones represented the number of wounds Riley had suffered. Each person giving a speech took a handful of stones and put them in a vase. The ninth and final speaker was her mother, Courtney. She wore a jacket with the insignia of the National Guard, where her daughter served. Despite her deep grief, Courtney spoke very strongly that she would not let Joshua, whom she called a monster, take away her love for her late daughter. People admired her for this, considering it her greatest strength. She emphasized that her daughter was never afraid to express her opinion when things were not going well and always confidently led others. At the end of her speech, Courtney placed the sunflowers in a vase containing 42 purple stones before returning to her seat. At the end of the hearing, Joshua Johnson was sentenced to life in prison. Courtney established a memorial fund in Riley's name, which provides scholarships to high school graduates. In the future, Courtney plans to organize charity events that she believes Riley would have enjoyed, including art nights, exhibitions, and running. Hello again, true crime fans. We've got another mysterious case to explore. The case of Sharon Pryor. Sharon Pryor was born on February 9, 1959, in Montreal, Canada. Her mother, Yvonne Pryor, is from the UK, and her mother's family immigrated to Canada when she was very young. Her mother lived her entire life in Canada, where she met her future husband, George, a serviceman. The couple fell in love, got married, and later welcomed their daughter Sharon. Just before Sharon's second birthday, her mother gave birth to twin girls, Doreen Va Marine, in 1962. Then she had another brother, who was the youngest. In 1965, George was stationed elsewhere in a different location, leading to the couple's decision to divorce. While George continued his military career and moved frequently, Yvonne settled in an apartment in Lang, Canada, provided through a program for military families. This quiet and cozy place seemed perfect for raising her children. Yvonne, Sharon's mother, thought she had found a safe home for her family. But she was unaware that danger could lurk even in such peaceful neighborhoods. From a young age, Sharon is famous for being a very gentle person, beautiful, and caring. She was responsible, sincere, and kind, which drove her to help those in need. Consequently, she often rescued homeless animals, especially those that were sick or injured. This compassion inspired her dream of becoming a veterinarian in the future. Later on, Sharon joined a school club and began playing hockey. She was also very creative, dedicating her free time to art clubs and needlework classes. With her many talents, Sharon appeared to have a bright future ahead. Yvonne was thrilled to see her daughter blossoming into such a wonderful person. As Sharon's assistant, Yvonne was naturally cautious and tried to protect her from negative influences and trouble. Sadly, this caution could not shield Sharon from meeting a cruel man who came into her life. At 16, Sharon is a normal girl facing typical teenage problems. She loved the music of the time and had new hobbies that her parents didn't always support. During this time, she met a young man named John, who had admired her since the 4th grade. Eventually, they started dating in the presence of their friends and were seen as a close-knit and loving couple. Sharon's parents, recognizing their affection for each other, supported their relationship. According to Sharon's mother, they had a harmonious relationship with no conflicts, and Sharon was surrounded by good people. Unfortunately, they were unable to shield her from trouble. On March 29, 1975, everything was going on as usual. Sharon woke up and had breakfast. Her mother was out running errands, having gone to the store the day before Easter to buy food and gifts for her children. When her mother returned home with the shopping, Sharon, the eldest daughter, helped her unpack. This day was meant to be special for the family. Additionally, her mother's boyfriend and his son, Stephen, along with some friends, were planning to visit. Sharon spent most of the day painting Easter eggs and preparing for the holiday. Stephen arrived early and played with her younger brother. Afterward, Sharon got ready to go with Stephen to a sports and crafts association, where they were members. Sharon will go there to get a coat called Garl. This named after the brother of the organization's founder, who died of leukemia. This jacket represented membership in the association, but it wasn't given to everyone. The children had to earn it, for instance, by selling lottery tickets. Sharon was determined to get jacket and had successfully sold enough tickets. Excited, she went to the association to receive her personalized jacket. However, she was disappointed to find that they did not have her size available. As a result, Sharon had to return home empty-handed with Stephen, planning to come back for her jacket another day. Despite her disappointment, Sharon maintained the festive spirit. She joined her mother and boyfriend to help with the final preparations for the gathering. Once the guests arrived, Sharon and her mother hid Easter eggs for the children to find later. Sharon then asked to go to the local pizzeria, Marina, which was popular among teenagers. It was close to home, and her mother often allowed her to go there with friends. This time was no different. After receiving permission, Sharon went to her room to get ready. While Sharon was about to leave, the girl next door came to visit. Everyone chatted while Sharon got ready. She borrowed one of her mother's sweaters and put on her favorite suede jacket. Around 7 p.m., Sharon and her neighbor left the house, but Sharon went to the pizza shop alone because her neighbor changed her mind and didn't want to go anymore. They said their goodbyes. The girl next door went home, while Sharon headed to meet her friends at the pizzeria. A group of teenagers was already there waiting for Sharon, but she didn't arrive on time. The others assumed she was just late because she was with her boyfriend John, so they didn't worry and continued their evening at the pizzeria. At that time, several employees from the company were watching a hockey match at home. After the game ended, they headed to the pizzeria. Among them was John, Sharon's boyfriend, who was there without her and had no idea where she was. Like the others, he expected Sharon to be at the pizzeria by the time they arrived, and her absence worried everyone since she was usually very punctual. Meanwhile, Sharon's mother, Yvonne, was at home putting the younger children to bed and watching TV. She decided to wait a bit longer, thinking that Sharon might have lost track of time while spending time with a friend, and will return home later. She stayed in the living room, watching TV, so she wouldn't miss her daughter's return, but she still hadn't come home. Around 1 o'clock in the morning, Yvonne was overwhelmed with fear because there was still no news about her daughter, Sharon. It was too late to call Sharon's friends, so she had to wait until morning, look out the window occasionally. As dawn approached, Yvonne started calling Sharon's friends to find out where she was. Unfortunately, neither her friends nor John knew her whereabouts. She was deeply troubled to learn that Sharon had never been to the pizza shop that evening. The girl next door confirmed that they had said goodbye to Sharon on the street, and she hasn't seen Sharon since. When Yvonne spoke to Mary, Sharon's best friend, she became even more anxious. Mary said her that after 7 p.m. near the pizzeria, a 20-year-old girl named Cheryl Roy was attacked by a stranger with a knife. Fortunately, other passers-by heard Cheryl's screams, which scared the attacker away. Witnesses reported that the man fled in the direction Sharon would have taken to the pizzeria. They described him as tall, dark-haired, blue-eyed, and mustached. He spoke calmly and wore a ski jacket, blue jeans, and pointed-toe shoes. After hearing this, Yvonne panicked, realizing that the time and location of the attack matched with the route Sharon usually takes. She came to report to the police, but they have yet to come to any conclusions. The police were in no rush to charge anyone in the attack. Instead, they decided to immediately launch a search. Hundreds of people learned about the incident and came out to help search for Sharon, a 16-year-old schoolgirl. They received her photo and description to make the search easier. Her mother, Yvonne, appeared on television to inform everyone about her daughter's disappearance and urged anyone with useful information to contact the police. Unfortunately, despite their efforts, there were no new leads. Days went by without any updates on Sharon's whereabouts, but her mother continued to hope for her daughter's safe return. However, the police had already searched the area, and the chances of finding Sharon alive were dwindling. Sharon had no reason to run away from home. She had a good relationship with her parents and was dating a nice guy at school. Their relationship is built on love and understanding, and he didn't seem like someone who would harm her. Sharon also stayed away from troublemakers, so when she disappeared, the police had no leads or suspects. Attempts to locate a man with a knife seen nearby were unsuccessful. The investigation has not made any new progress in a long time, and Sharon's mother was devastated, but she still hoped for her daughter's safe return. On April 1st, around 6 a.m., Sharon's mother, Yvonne, noticed something unusual through the window. A familiar young man was leaving Sharon's house, crossing the street to retrieve a newspaper left on her doorstep. Sensing something was off, she called out to him, trying to understand why he was up so early and taking newspapers from house to house. He didn't respond and instead quickened his pace to leave. She rushed outside and caught up with him. He tried to keep the newspaper, but she managed to grab it from him. He shouted for her not to look, but she did anyway. On the main page, she was confronted with a heartbreaking photo of a girl's body found in the snow. This incident occurred in the suburbs, just a few minutes' drive from their home. She was not only shocked by the news but also because the police did not inform her, which they should have done. She learned about it later than many neighbors who had seen the latest news in the paper. She convinced herself that it wasn't Sharon but rather another girl who resembled her daughter. After gathering her thoughts, Yvonne called the police to dispute the newspaper's frightening headline. The detectives informed her that they had not yet confirmed if the body belonged to Sharon, which intensified her fear. Feeling overwhelmed, she asked for Sharon's father, George, to come to the area for her since she was in shock. The photograph of the victim bore a striking resemblance to her missing daughter, Sharon, and she was dressed exactly as Sharon's mother had described. When Sharon's father got there, he recognized his daughter, leaving no doubt that the 16-year-old schoolgirl was deceased. A local resident, Jacques, who had also read about the girl's disappearance in the newspaper, discovered the body. Upon recognizing the victim looked like Sharon, he immediately reported the grim discovery. Jacques usually made sure that all his doors were locked, but on Tuesday, he discovered that one lock was open and the door was unlocked. He thought it was strange that there were no signs of a break-in, as if someone had a key. The truth was, he was the only person with full access to the house. When he went outside to the driveway, he was shocked to find a woman's body lying there, naked from the waist down. Additionally, nothing had been taken from his home. Jacques was perplexed about why the body was found in that location. Patrol officers soon arrived, and a murder investigation began. They quickly noted that it was a brutal crime. Sharon had multiple signs of abuse, including bruises and hematomas. She was only wearing a suede jacket and a blue sweater, with her jeans located a few meters away and her underwear caught on a tree. Her mouth was tightly taped, with the tape tangled in her hair. She was gripping the tape in her hand, suggesting she had fought to remove it. There were clear indications that Sharon had attempted to rise, implying she was left alive during the horrific ordeal. Investigators found additional evidence about 15 meters from the body, including tire tracks leading from that spot to where the body lay, along with a trail of blood droplets. No signs of dragging were present. The investigators quickly concluded that multiple individuals may have been involved in this violent act. Sharon's socks and shoes showed no dirt, indicating she did not crawl on the ground by herself. Instead, she was carried out of the car and abandoned in the cold. Near her body, investigators found a man's shirt tied around her wrists, which helped determine the main suspect in the case is quite tall. Additionally, a clear footprint was discovered next to the entry gate post, providing further evidence. They also located a receipt for Garo jacket, which Sharon never received. After a forensic examination, it was determined that Sharon had died only a few hours before her body was found. It was clear she had been held captive for several days, from Saturday to Tuesday. The perpetrator had been extremely cruel, as there were signs of strangulation on her neck, and she had choked on her own blood. Forensic experts found that her ribs were crushed, indicating the killer may have been kneeling on her chest. She also suffered a severe head injury and bleeding from multiple stab wounds. Both sides of her jaw were broken, her nose was fractured, and her cheek was torn by a tooth that had been knocked out from the force of the attack. On April 4, 1975, about 200 friends, relatives, and local residents gathered at a community center. They hoped that the killer would soon be caught. 9 months prior to Sharon's murder, another brutal crime occurred in Canada, the killing of a teenage girl in Chatoy. 12-year-old Norma O'Brien was murdered on the evening of July 9, 1974. After leaving home to play water polo, she discovered the pool was closed for repairs. Norma returned to the pond, but she never made it back home. That same evening, she was reported missing. The family was convinced that Norma would not have left on her own, so they started looking for her. The next day, her partially clothed body was discovered in a field near the pool. Norma's murder resembled that of Sharon, who was also found in the same area, brutally beaten and strangled. The two crime scenes were approximately a half-hour's drive apart, leading to speculation that they might have been committed by the same individual, although there is no definitive evidence to support this theory. Following Sharon's murder on June 23, 1975, 14-year-old Debbie Fisher disappeared in Chatoy while riding her red bicycle home. She was later found in the forest, unclothed but without signs of sexual assault. Debbie had died from a blow to the head with a stone. Subsequently, a 17-year-old male suspect confessed to the crime, but his identity is kept private due to his age. The suspect claimed that he was returning home on his moped around 6:30 p.m. when he spotted Debbie riding her bicycle and carrying milk. After observing her closely, he devised a sinister plan. He greeted her, and she responded in kind. He then overtook her, concealed his moped in the bushes, and sat on the curb, pretending to cry. Concerned, Debbie stopped, and the suspect called her over, prompting her to step closer to him. He grabbed her and began to assault her. He threw the milk into the field, and she lost consciousness. Then, he hid her bike in the bushes and attempted to rape her but was unsuccessful. In a fit of rage, he struck her on the head with a rock, causing her death. He concealed her body in an abandoned car in the forest and fled on his moped. Debbie's killer later admitted killing Norma O'Brien, but he denied any involvement in Sharon's killing. He had an alibi at the time of Sharon's murder, so he was not considered a suspect in that case. He was convicted of murdering two girls, Debbie and Norma, and due to his age, served only a few years in prison before being released. He now lives and works in Montreal, near the location where Sharon's body was discovered. Police gathered a significant amount of evidence related to Sharon's murder. However, the outcome was not what they had hoped for. 13 months went by without identifying a primary suspect for charges. They found 38 individuals who might be linked to that tragic night. 6 of these 38 individuals were detained, but ultimately, all were released due to a lack of evidence. Sharon's close friends were also interviewed, and they all had alibis. Some were at a pizzeria, while others were at home watching a game. The investigation became increasingly difficult and gradually reached a dead end as investigators could not find new clues. And it appeared that everyone had given up, except for the mother of Sharon's. Sharon's mother, Yvonne, was frantic as she tried to piece together what had happened to her daughter. Yvonne realized that Sharon couldn't have gone far from home by the time she left the house to go to the pizza shop. On the way, Sharon was supposed to meet a neighbor who was also returning home from work. For years, the neighbor would walk the same path, but that day he claimed he didn't see Sharon on the sidewalk. Since Sharon had not traveled far, she should have been kidnapped right after saying goodbye to her friend. The kidnapper had only a few minutes to act, and somehow he managed to do it without being seen. Unfortunately, there were no witnesses to Sharon's abduction, making it seem like the perfect crime. Sharon's mother believed it was crucial to pay attention to all the neighbors on their street. Someone should have noticed the suspicious stranger or recognized him if he lived nearby. Detectives described the killer and rapist as being around 20 years old, likely living with his parents. They suspected that he had psychological issues, possibly including obsessive behaviors or hostility towards women. The detectives believed this crime was not the first committed by the suspect, and if he wasn't apprehended soon, it wouldn't be the last. They were convinced that several people were involved in both the kidnapping and the subsequent violence. It was also thought that one of the attackers could have been an unpredictable stranger with a knife who initially targeted another girl, Cheryl, but fled when come across by nearby witnesses. Witnesses described the attacker after Cheryl's assault. Despite thorough searches, he could not be found. It was statistically unlikely for two rapists and kidnappers to be active at the same time in one of the city's safest neighborhoods, prompting detectives concluded that the same person was responsible for the attack on Cheryl and the murder of Sharon. The attacker's behavior suggested he knew the area well, allowing him to navigate without leaving evidence or raising suspicion among residents. Detectives, along with Cheryl's mother, concluded that the assailant likely lived nearby. They characterized the attacker as a sadist. Typically, individuals with such tendencies follow a predictable pattern. They seek out compliant victims, initially presenting themselves as charming and sweet to gain trust. Over time, however, they become increasingly cruel and demanding. It all begins with control, followed by humiliation, and then they start mocking the victim. In this context, relationships with women often develop, and the sadist gradually shifts from seeking a partner to becoming a predator on the hunt. As a result, the police decided to thoroughly investigate all local residents with histories of harassment and domestic violence. Their goal was to find and question the knife-wielding attacker who had assaulted Cheryl. He matched the profile of the criminal, socially awkward and resorting to a knife instead of conversation. He was unlikely to be a successful individual or possess high intelligence. This type of person usually had a history of violence and preferred to use brute force to achieve his goals instead of clever tactics or deception. It was clear he lacked self-control, easily losing his temper and being ready to fight at any moment. The most alarming part of this situation is that the police are chasing a suspect who could be a serial killer, who needs to be stopped immediately. While he tried to run away from the detectives, they continued their search for him. Unfortunately, many crucial technologies we have today, such as DNA analysis, surveillance cameras, and phone geolocation, had not yet been developed at that time, leaving the investigators with limited resources. Although detectives investigated quickly and professionally, but 6 years after Sharon's body was found, the killer struck again. A 12-year-old girl named Temi was ferociously murdered. It is believed that the sadistic attacker, after assaulting a 16-year-old named Sharon, began targeting younger girls for his crimes. When Temi's body was discovered, it was revealed that the attacker had grabbed her and started to molest her. Then, he attempted to rape her but was unsuccessful. In a fit of rage, he struck her on the head with a rock, leading to her death. Although detectives investigated quickly and professionally, but 6 years after Sharon's body was found, the killer struck again. The second victim was a 12-year-old schoolgirl named Temi Leakey. She was ferociously murdered. It is believed that after attacking 16-year-old Sharon, the perpetrator chose to target younger girls for his crimes. When Temi's body was found, the same police officers who had been investigating Sharon's murder took on this case. They quickly noticed the similarities between the two murders, which further supported the theory of a serial killer. On March 20, 1981, Temi was visiting her grandmother when she disappeared just a few blocks from her grandmother's house. Later, Temi's mother found her glasses on the sidewalk. When she returned home, the woman immediately reported her daughter missing to the police. They identified a witness who saw a man in a beige raincoat get out of a small red car and force a screaming girl into it. That same evening, Temi was found barely alive on the street. A man came to the police station to report a serious matter. He saw Temi was naked and covered with clothes. Doctors worked hard to save her, but unfortunately, she died. The examination revealed that she had been strangled. Although she was not raped, there were traces of male fluid found on her clothes. The attacker had been careless, leaving behind enough evidence that connected this case to other brutal murders. Despite the detectives' efforts, the investigation hit a dead end. Meanwhile, in nearby areas of Canada, there were reports of similar assaults on girls and young women. In 1971, 17-year-old Lisa Blaze was found dead just a few meters from her home in Montreal. She had left a bar early in the morning, suffered a blow to the head, and was raped. This case has not yet been resolved. Because there are so many open cases, the police have difficulty determining whether these cases are related or not. In 2000, Sharon's mother reached out to the police, requesting a re-evaluation of her daughter's case using modern techniques. At that time, advancements in technology, especially in DNA analysis, had made it possible to investigate cases more effectively. However, a week later, she was disappointed to learn that most of the evidence from the year Sharon was murdered had disappeared. The few surviving items from 1995 included Sharon's clothing and belongings possibly linked to a suspect. Forensic scientists tested a shirt belonging to a man but found that the DNA did not match Sharon. Although no matches were identified in the database, the DNA sample was preserved for future comparisons with any suspects that might emerge later on. In June 2004, the police received a tip about a garage where Sharon might have been held by her killer. When detectives investigated, they found no new evidence. They collected 3 DNA samples from the site, but none matched Sharon's DNA or the materials found on her clothing. Ultimately, this lead turned out to be false. In 2012, a $10,000 reward was offered to anyone with information leading to the arrest of the killer of Sharon. This announcement suggested that the police might have new leads in the case and were seeking help from the public. They established a special hotline to make it easier for people to share information, and the investigation has been reopened. However, like previous efforts, this initiative did not result in any breakthroughs. Detectives revisited the case involving Cheryl's attack in hopes of identifying the perpetrator. They arranged for Cheryl to undergo hypnosis. During the session, she was shown photos of various men, including serial killer William Patrick Fife. She said her attacker looked very similar William, a Canadian serial killer who was convicted of murdering 5 women in Montreal. He claimed to have had 9 victims, but authorities could only confirm 5. Detectives had long suspected his involvement in the girls' murders and tried to link him to these cases. However, he denied any guilt and claimed he only started killing in 1979. It's important to highlight that Sharon was murdered in 1975. Regrettably, no evidence was found that connected him to the case of Sharon's. Later on, investigators later looked potential connections between the girls' murders and other dangerous criminals in Canada. One suspect was Mike French, a member of the Montreal biker gang Satan. He lived close to Sharon when she was killed in 1975 but moved away with his parents 2 years later. Those who knew him described him as aggressive and cruel, suggesting he could have been responsible for the girls' deaths. Some witnesses reported hearing Mike boast about his involvement in violent acts, but once again, the police faced challenges. Mike was killed in a gang conflict in November, taking with him any potential information about his connection to the murders. His murder also remains unsolved. Ultimately, all these leads were mere speculation. The Sharon family was outraged by the police's lack of professionalism. They committed to fighting for justice until the end, determined to find and hold the criminal accountable. Sharon's mother felt that this fight was not just for her daughter, but also for other parents mourning the loss of their children. In 2015, Sharon's mother was featured on television with 9 other families, accused the police of being unable to handle the case. A new development in the case occurred in June 2022 when a match was found in a DNA database through genetic genealogy. A DNA sample from a man's shirt discovered at the scene of Sharon's murder was matched to Franklin Maywood Romine, who had died in 1982. His body was exhumed for analysis, and DNA confirmation was obtained on May 2, 2023. Franklin resembled the suspect described by witnesses. He lived nearby where the attack occurred, and his car matched the tire tracks found near Sharon's body. He also had a troubled criminal history, including convictions for assault and rape. This evidence was crucial in resolving Sharon's murder case. Although no one could be charged or tried, investigators were able to bring closure to the case. The tragic murder of Sharon Pryor, a 16-year-old schoolgirl, has been solved, thanks to advancements in DNA testing and the determined efforts of her family. Welcome back, mystery lovers. Today's case is going to keep you on the edge of your seat. The case of Kimberly Wenger. Kimberly Wenger was born on September 25, 1963, in Bloomington, Illinois, USA. She grew up in a family of 3 siblings. However, her parents' relationship deteriorated, eventually leading to a divorce and her mother having to take care of the children. Kimberly was healthy, beautiful, and very active. She was a member of the cheerleading squad at her school, where she was quite popular. She regularly attended cheerleading camps and was highly regarded by both teachers and students. Her outgoing personality and beauty made it easy for her to make friends and socialize with her peers. Kimberly aspired to become a film actress and even achieved some success in this field. Notably, she appeared as an extra in the famous film Grand Vue. The filming took place in 1983 in Panty, Illinois, where Kimberly decided to try her luck, and it paid off. This experience became one of the most memorable moments of her life. During this time, Kimberly's mother fulfilled her long-cherished dream of owning a business by purchasing a bar with her grandmother's inheritance. Kimberly joined her mother, hoping to become part of the business. However, disagreements over her mother's vision led Kimberly to leave the company. In 1985, Kimberly met a young man named Thatcher Wenger and they began dating. Kimberly found him to be loving and kind. She soon became pregnant and they welcomed a daughter named Kelsey. The couple later married. Unfortunately, after the wedding, Thatcher's behavior changed, he becoming more cruel. This change, coupled with financial difficulties, made their situation tense. Despite taking care of the children, Kimberly found their finances inadequate and wanted to work part-time. However, she faced challenges in finding a suitable job. The family situation worsened and the couple later divorced. Kimberly soon began dating another man, Dale Fosdick. However, this relationship also failed. Dale admitted that he wanted to end things as soon as he learned that she was pregnant with his child. Not ready to be a father, he decided to disappear. Kimberly was devastated by the news because she had hoped to start a family with him. Her friend said that after the breakup, Kimberly felt abandoned and anxious because of 2 failed relationships. In the midst of this turmoil, Kimberly seriously considered terminating the pregnancy but ultimately decided to keep the baby. She gave birth to her second child, a boy named Logan. Although he broke up with Dale, he later showed up and agreed to support his son. He paid a small amount of child support from his salary, but he was not reliable in this regard. Dale was often late with his payments. They were inconsistent and clearly not enough to live comfortably and raise a child. As a result, Kimberly had to go to work while her friends took care of the children. At the time, Kimberly worked as a hairdresser. She also found extra income by working as a nanny and cleaning lady. This helped a little with the family's needs, but they were all on food stamps and lived quite poorly. Kimberly and her mother had a bad relationship, so her mother did not help her. When her son was very young, Kimberly met a pastor named Kurt Simon. They were both struggling financially, but despite their hardships, they developed a deep affection for each other and were happy together. Determined to find stability and face their challenges, Kurt loved Kimberly so much that he planned to adopt her children, and Logan even started calling him Dad. They seemed like a wonderful couple, happy and loving, unaware of the threat looming over them. On Saturday, May 22, 1993, at around 10:30 p.m., the couple returned home from a short trip. They had traveled to Quincy, where Kurt's parents lived, so his family could meet Kimberly and bless their upcoming wedding. During the trip, they also visited the university's theological seminary. Taking advantage of the opportunity, they arranged their engagement just a day before returning to Illinois. They gathered friends nearby to celebrate. Their relationship progressed quickly, and they seemed like the perfect couple. Close friends and family were thrilled about their decision, making this an important and joyful event for Kimberly and Kurt. Kurt returned in high spirits, eager to spend the entire weekend together. The following day, they planned to attend a concert featuring Kimberly's daughter, Kelsey. Kelsey, who studied at a music school, was recognized as a young prodigy. Her parents fully supported her and were eager to attend the event, intending to further encourage her by hosting a family gathering at a pizza parlor afterward. The couple arrived home in their family car and parked in the driveway. Kurt exited the car first to bring some luggage into the house. When he went back for the rest, he found Kimberly outside, smiling at him. She remarked that it felt warmer there compared to Iowa, her last words before she opened the front door. As Kimberly entered the house, a huge explosion suddenly occurred, violently throwing Kurt backwards. The explosion was so powerful that it woke the neighbors and shattered the windows of the surrounding houses. In shock, Kurt rushed into the ruined house and found Kimberly lying motionless on the floor. The right side of her skull was missing, destroyed by the explosion or debris. Tragically, Kurt could do nothing to save Kimberly. Kurt was in shock and couldn't believe what was happening. Luckily, the children had stayed with Kimberly's relatives and didn't join them on the trip. Kurt called 911 and stayed with her until the police arrived. The officers responded quickly and found Kurt crying, kneeling in the rubble of the house, holding his beloved's head in his arms. She was only 29 years old when she died. This event was strange and unusual for the entire local community in such a quiet place. People feared their homes might also be rigged to explode, so they asked the police for protection. Fortunately, no such threats were found. Explosives experts quickly scanned the crime scene to determine the best course of action and found a suspicious package in the hallway of the home. The package was rigged to explode if moved, activated by a button. When Kimberly entered the house, she noticed the unfamiliar package and, out of curiosity, attempted to inspect it. The package exploded at face level, killing her instantly. During the crime scene investigation, forensic experts discovered various bomb-making materials in the basement, such as wires, fuses, and battery wrappers. Discarded rubber gloves were also found in the trash. Although Kurt was present during the explosion, he suffered only minor injuries. As a result, the police initially considered him the main suspect. In full view of their shocked neighbors, Kurt was handcuffed, read his rights, and taken to the police station for questioning. He cooperated with the investigation, providing his fingerprints and DNA, and recounted the events leading up to the tragedy. Kurt was released hours later. His active cooperation in the investigation gave hope that the criminal would be apprehended soon. Considering Kurt was not involved in the incident, it is likely that the perpetrator brought the tools and parts needed to make the bomb. Since the entrance doors and windows were not damaged, it appears the attacker had a way into the house. The police thought this was a deliberate act of revenge against Kimberly. To avoid accidentally setting off the bomb while transporting it, the attacker probably put it together at the scene. The explosive was powerful and meant to destroy the house and kill everyone inside, which would also get rid of any evidence linking the attacker to the crime. Luckily, and some evidence was left intact, giving investigators important information. After Kurt was cleared of any wrongdoing by a solid alibi, the police questioned who would want to harm the Kimberly family. Kurt pointed them to Kimberly's mother, Cricket Lewis, who was now married to someone else and had a different last name. Kurt viewed Cricket as evil and the only person capable of such a terrible act. Cricket and Kimberly had a poor relationship, which prompted Cricket to resent Kurt. Kurt claimed that Cricket was only interested in running her bar and was indifferent to everything else. She was described as harsh and inexplicably hostile to others. Kimberly's relationship with her mother was strained and they rarely saw each other. Financial gain and power were very important to Cricket. She pushed her daughter to open a bar, allegedly making money through dubious means. Cricket inherited the fortune from her grandmother, who died suddenly despite being in good health. While the investigation was ongoing, no evidence was found to link Cricket to her grandmother's death, which was ruled to be due to natural causes. After Kimberly began working at Cricket's bar, she was exploited, receiving low wages and bonuses that were not as good as those of other employees. Despite trying to resolve her financial problems with the help of her loved ones, Kimberly only faced more challenges. Realizing the situation, Kimberly abandoned her delusions and left the bar. At Kimberly's funeral, Cricket seemed to be concerned only about losing Kimberly's insurance policy, which meant she would not receive financial compensation for her daughter's death. However, the police investigation found no evidence of malicious intent on Cricket's part. They found that she was focused on running her business. After carefully examining the information and witness statements, the police found that Cricket had no motive for the crime. It was concluded that she did not have the technical skills and abilities to build a bomb herself, and her alibi was found to be credible. When the investigation resumed, the next suspect was Kimberly's ex-husband, Thatcher Wenger. Kurt Thatcher had been involved in a custody dispute over Kimberly, making him a possible suspect in the planning and execution of the crime. Thatcher lived only 3 kilometers from the couple and worked as an engineer, suggesting that he may have had the skills and equipment to build an explosive device. However, after examining the relationship between Kimberly and Thatcher, police found that their interactions were generally friendly, with minor disagreements resolved through simple discussions. The investigation found that Thatcher had no motive for the murder and had a credible alibi that was verified. The next suspect was Kimberly's co-worker, Phil Hartman, whom she had accused of harassment in an earlier police complaint. Phil later threatened to retaliate aggressively. He admitted that he had tried to pursue a relationship with Kimberly, but she had a negative opinion of him, which led him to abandon the relationship. However, Phil also had a confirmed alibi, as he lived far from Bloomington and was out of town when the couple returned. Police also considered Logan's father, Dale Fosdick, a suspect. Dale, 31, lived on the east side of town, near Kimberly's home, and worked in the aircraft industry, assembling miniature models. Dale's expertise with equipment and ability to overhaul automotive engines made him a potential perpetrator. Police went to Dale's home with a search warrant, and he cooperated with their investigation. They found tools for assembling a device on the kitchen table, which looked suspicious. Police also discovered a large amount of components that could be used to make explosives. Several tools were confiscated, but the most notable was a pair of pliers, as the markings on the tool matched those found on bomb components in Kimberly's home. Dale also had receipts from Walmart for ammunition and other materials that closely resembled those used to make explosive devices. When the remains of the explosives were analyzed, a forensic scientist learned that they matched the components used to make explosives found at Kimberly's home. Initially, police had little evidence because most of it had been destroyed in the explosion. Forensic analysis required examining all of the evidence under a microscope. Finally, advanced methods such as gas chromatography and mass spectrometry provide direct evidence. One expert noted a distinctive design feature: 2 holes drilled into one end of the cap, which looked like the criminal's unique signature. Law enforcement databases have about 20 records of homemade devices used in crimes. With a handful matching this design, the attacker quickly assembled a random design that fit their target. Forensic experts continue to examine the remaining pieces of the device in detail. Police knew that most of the suspects had nothing to do with the massacre. Their efforts focused on proving the guilt of Dale, who had been found with suspicious items in his home. These items were stored in a basement workshop. Dale was a lonely young man living in a small house in the suburbs of Bloomington. He became upset when he discovered that his ex-girlfriend was engaged to someone else, which may have led to feelings of jealousy and revenge. This gave him a real motive for the crime, making him one of the few acquaintances of the victim to have such a motive. Forensic experts also identified other important details. The attacker used 2 different types of gunpowder, which when combined, increased the force of the explosion. A look at the crime scene showed that the explosion was so powerful that most of Kimberly's house was destroyed. Many who knew Dale believed that he could not have committed such a crime. Usually, such thoughts do not occur to good people. Police searched for any signs of cruelty or aggression in Dale's past before this violent incident. He had no history of violent crimes, legal problems, arrests for similar crimes, or drug addictions. According to many, he had recently shown concern for his child and was trying to improve his relationship with Kimberly. However, because of certain items found in his home, he became the prime suspect. He was arrested for first-degree murder and held in state prison while awaiting trial. The first trial was declared invalid due to insufficient evidence. During the hearing, a juror became ill and was unable to continue, leading to a second trial. At trial, the defense presented Dale as a devoted father and a kind, humble man, arguing that he was incapable of committing a heinous and vicious crime. His attorneys emphasized his role as a caring and loving father to convince the jury of his innocence. Dale initially objected to his girlfriend's pregnancy and fatherhood because he felt he was too young. When Kimberly decided to keep the child, he shunned her. However, he later realized his mistake and completely changed his attitude. He decided to accept paternity and aimed to restore his relationship with both his son and Kimberly, even hoping to marry her. Dale argued that there was no reason for him to harm the woman with whom he planned to start a family. On Dale's side, even the mother of the Kimberly supported him. Cricket was still convinced that her fiancé, Kurt Simon, was the murderer. The mother claimed that Kurt, who was aspiring to be a pastor, had recently become cruel and controlling towards Kimberly. This situation led to many disagreements, but there were clear inconsistencies in her claims because Kimberly rarely communicated with her mother and couldn't have known about their relationship issues. Cricket defended the Dale in every way possible. She highlighted that Dale showed her attention and tried to gain Kimberly's trust. He frequently visited to spend time with the child and had changed significantly for the better. Dale Fosdick repeatedly expressed his love, apologized for his past decisions, and tried to win Kimberly over. However, she was firm in her commitment to her new boyfriend Kurt and had no intention of breaking up. In fact, the couple planned to get married and confirmed this by getting engaged. The prosecutor's office warned that the Kimberly's decision could have dire consequences once Dale realized there was no chance of rekindling their relationship. Seeking revenge, Dale likely targeted Kurt. Despite Dale's careful planning, the Kurt miraculously survived. During the trial, one of Kimberly's sisters and her mother supported Dale, claiming his innocence. Despite this, the prosecution made a strong case. Explosives experts provided direct evidence that a large number of parts and materials suitable for making bombs were found in his home and proved that they were used to make bombs. According to S.H. Moore, Dale expressed a willingness to support Kimberly financially, but he preferred to quit his job rather than pay alimony. Meanwhile, Kimberly wanted the financial support she was entitled to from the negligent biological father of her son, so she planned to seek justice through the court. During this time, Dale grew worried that Kimberly would move away with their son to live with her fiancé. Several of Dale's co-workers mentioned his intention to gain custody of Logan to avoid alimony payments. To achieve this, he gathered evidence to discredit Kimberly, hoping it would help him strip her of parental rights and gain custody of their son. Neighbors reported seeing Dale near Kimberly's home before the explosion. Kimberly kept a spare key under the rug, allowing Dale easy access to her home. Many described Dale as a quiet, unassuming, even shy person who seemed unlikely to commit a violent crime. He was known to avoid conflict and was always positive. However, the prosecutor's office argued that Dale's personality influenced his choice of method in eliminating his victim. Not wanting to confront Kimberly directly, he resorted to a surprise and cowardly attack using an explosive device. On February 26, 1996, the jury found Dale Fosdick guilty of first-degree murder. After the verdict, the mother of the Kimberly expressed her disagreement with the decision, stating that Dale could seek her help if he needed it. She held his hand, tears in her eyes, and kissed him on the cheek, believing he was a victim of a miscarriage of justice. Dale had 25 supporters who actively defended his innocence in court. Only one juror voted against the death penalty, which was enough to spare him from it. Consequently, he was sentenced to 55 years in prison. Cricket Lewis, Kimberly's mother, continued to fight for Dale's innocence. In May 1996, she wrote a letter to the local media. She acknowledged that her stance had caused considerable public outrage and that she had faced criticism for supporting Dale, the convicted man. She was upset when her daughter's fiancé Kurt described her as the embodiment of evil in a media interview. Cricket asserted that she mourned her daughter every day and believed that the real killer was still at large. Cricket died at 65 on December 19, 2003. Her son-in-law, Kurt Simon, became a minister at the First Presbyterian Church after her death. Right after her mother's death, Kelsey moved in with her father, Thatcher Wenger, at the Salvation Army and worked in homeless shelters. Thatcher passed away at 52 on November 27, 2003. Dale was in prison and died of natural causes at 48 in 2010. Logan graduated from college, joined the Bloomington Police Force, started a family, and has a child. Hey detectives! Welcome back. We've got another mysterious case to explore. The case of Celia Barquin. Celia Barquin was born on July 6, 1996, in Point San Miguel, a village in Cantabria, northern Spain, where her family has lived for 8 generations. She then moved to Iowa on an athletic golf scholarship. Many universities offered her scholarships due to her talent, but she chose Ames, Iowa. With a population of 65,000, Ames was quiet and cozy, reminding her of her hometown in Spain. However, at that time, she did not expect that this decision would be a serious mistake. Celia has a wonderful relationship with her family, who remained in her homeland. Her parents, Maria Rosa and Marcos Barkin, had 2 children, Celia and Andres. Marcos worked as a butcher, and Maria was a saleswoman at a clothing store. However, after their children were born, Maria became a housewife, focusing on raising the children and managing household tasks. The family was not wealthy, they lived modestly but were close-knit and supportive. Their children are their top priority, and their parents did everything to ensure that their children receive a good education and started their lives on the right path. Andres pursued a law degree, while Celia, a talented golfer, earned a scholarship to study in the United States. Celia's mother, who loved golf since childhood, passed on her passion for the sport to Celia. Being smaller than other girls her age, Celia learned to use specific techniques to win. When growing up, her petite figure enabled her to practice continuously to improve her abilities. Her dream was to become a successful professional golfer, not for fame, but to support her parents. Celia often expressed her desire to buy them a house and take care of them. To achieve this, she practiced diligently to improve her skills. Celia has achieved numerous titles and awards for her victories in various competitions. She won the European Women's Amateur Championship in Slovenia in June 2018, placed second in the women's team golf competition in Europe. Was the 2018 Big 12 Women's Golf Champion in the United States, and was named the 2018 Iowa State Athlete of the Year. There were high expectations for her, and many believed she had a bright future. When Celia moved to the United States, her relationship with her family remained strong. She talked to her parents daily, sometimes even 4 or 5 times a day when she had free time. Celia missed her family a lot. A nightly call to say goodnight and share the day's successes was a cherished routine. During vacations, she visited her family in Spain. Even while on vacation, she continued to train hard to improve her skills. Her mother supported her passion and often trained with her. Celia was comfortably settled in Iowa, living with her boyfriend, Carlos Nigri Nabalis, in a rented apartment. When Celia and Carlos met at the university, she was dating someone else, but Carlos fell in love with her at first sight. Her charming smile, piercing gaze, cheerfulness, and kindness captured his heart. And her determination and perseverance earned his deep respect. Although Carlos had to accept that she was with someone else, but he became her best friend and consistently supported her. For over a year, he stood by her side, then she became disillusioned with her boyfriend and broke up with him. After another walk together, Carlos finally confessed his feelings, and Celia pulled him by the shirt, kissed him, and without saying a word, left in a car. He was so happy she felt the same way that he ran around his room shouting with joy. That's how their romance started. To celebrate the beginning of their relationship, Carlos even set off fireworks to impress her and sent her a video where he told her she was amazing and one in a million. From then on, they were inseparable, and over time, they moved in together and started living together. Lately, their conversations were filled with dreams about their wedding venue and even the names of their future children. They were already engaged and planning the most important event of their lives for May 2017. Carlos had graduated from college and secured a job at an engineering firm in Ames. Celia was in her final semester at Iowa State University, also majoring in civil engineering. After completing her athletic career, she aspired to become an engineer and make a positive impact on people, wanting to demonstrate that women can succeed in construction as well. Celia excelled in her studies and successfully showed that women can thrive in this field. Celia had many friends and enjoyed surprising them with delicious Spanish dishes that she cooked very well. Among the university students, a popular video showed her skillfully tossing a Spanish omelet, flipping it in the air, and adding butter to make it burst like a fireball. Her friends loved this performance and often asked her to repeat it. In the summer of 2018, Celia spent her time in Spain with her family before returning to Iowa to graduate. She was a promising athlete on the Iowa State women's golf team and also competed individually. She was preparing for an upcoming competition. But unfortunately, those plans did not materialize. Celia's assassin has been following her, and he has also planned an attack. On the ill-fated day of September 17, 2018, Celia arrived at the golf club after finishing a conversation with her mother. The staff, familiar with she, informed her that a group of 15 older men from Des Moines would also be playing golf. At 8:45, the group was sent to the starting line near the first 4 holes. Celia watched them arrive in golf carts and start playing. The retirees invited her to go ahead and start her game. Celia pushed the golf club to the first hole and then moved to the 4th hole to avoid delaying the older men. The seniors described her as polite and friendly. She then proceeded to the 7th hole, which was unpopular due to its distance from the other holes and its location next to Squaw Creek Park, known for dense vegetation. Athletes often avoided this area because it was sometimes frequented by unauthorized park visitors and aggressive homeless people. However, Celia was not familiar with this club and unaware of its thing, so she went there. To reach the 9th hole, players must cross a bridge along a wide path and then pass through a wooded area. One coach described this area as eerie, likening it to Sleepy Hollow. Celia went in that direction. Later, at around 10:30 a.m., a group of 15 people arrived in the area and found Celia's golf stick with her belongings, but Celia was not there. While the group played, they noticed that Celia hadn't appeared even after 10 minutes, which was unusual. Concerned, they decided to approach Celia's golf stick and look for her. Upon closer inspection, they found her t-shirt, baseball cap, and other items scattered on the ground, with her phone left. While it seemed some items might have accidentally fallen from her pocket, the presence of her t-shirt and the abandoned phone was puzzling. They searched the surrounding area but did not find anyone. Subsequently, they notified the club management to report this troubling discovery. The group reported seeing a young, blonde girl playing golf earlier, but now she was missing, and her belongings were left behind. The staff who arrived recognized her as Celia and began searching for her. In less than half an hour, they found a body floating in the pond near the 9th hole and called the police. Once the body was retrieved from the water, police identified her as Celia Barquin, the reigning European champion. She had been stabbed multiple times in the neck and torso. A search dog quickly picked up a scent and led officers to a tent in a wooded area of Squaw Creek Park. The tent was empty, but there was blood inside. The police suspected that a homeless man had been living there and might have attacked Celia, so they began searching for him. While the police were searching the area, a man approached them. He introduced himself as Colin Richards and mentioned that he lived nearby and was there to collect his tent. Colin, like Celia, was 22 years old, but they were complete opposites. The police suspected him of the murder because his face was covered in scratches. In a black backpack he carried, they discovered bloody clothes, a t-shirt and shorts, which he had replaced with clean ones. Search dogs also detected his scent. Additionally, he had a deep gash on his left arm, from which blood was oozing, and he attempted to conceal it from the officers. Based on this evidence, Colin Richards was taken into custody by the police. He was at a friend's house before the police arrived, according to Colin. 2 male acquaintances took him to the park to get his tent. When he went to retrieve it, he saw the police. He denied any involvement in the crime and claimed he had never met Celia. He said the scratches on his face were from branches he encountered while walking through the woods. Colin was known to the police for substance abuse, alcohol issues, and mental health problems. He became homeless after being released from prison 3 months before the murder. He had served about 7 months in jail for burglary and had multiple prior convictions for similar offenses, with many criminal records. Colin grew up in a dysfunctional family and was known to the police since his teenage years. Detectives interviewed 3 men who were acquaintances of his. One of these men shared a tent with Colin, while the other 2 gave him a ride from his home to the park. The homeowner allowed Colin to wash and change his clothes because he was dirty and covered in mud, blood, sand, and water. After cleaning up and changing his clothes, Colin left with his bloody clothes in a black backpack to return to the park for his tent. He intended to leave the area afterward. According to the men, Colin was acting unusual that day, extremely nervous, and very to leave. He didn't explain his sudden decision, only mentioning that he had cut himself badly and dirted his clothes. Another homeless man who lived with Colin in a tent at the park mentioned that he always carried a serrated knife, which he used for household tasks. A day before the murder, Colin confessed to this friend his desire to rape and kill someone. But that man thought he was just joking. Colin was charged with first-degree murder right after Celia's body was found. Investigators believed the crime was premeditated. They thought he had planned to kill someone and was looking for a she that day. The judge set bail at $5 million, but Colin, of course, didn't have that kind of money, so he remained in custody until his trial. Meanwhile, Celia's family in Spain had no idea about these tragic incidents, but they were very worried because she hadn't called them or answered their calls and messages. Police aides tried to contact their colleagues in Point San Miguel and the embassy staff in Madrid to inform Celia's family about the terrible news, but it was already past midnight in Spain and no one was working. Therefore, Celia's coach had to call her parents to inform them of their daughter's incident. After many hours of not hearing from Celia, the parents learned that their daughter had been brutally murdered. Later, a serrated knife was discovered in a wooded area, bearing the fingerprints and DNA of Colin. Furthermore, the blood found under Celia's fingernails contained fragments of Colin's skin, confirming that these Colin scratches were caused by Celia, not by branches. Initially, he denied his guilt, but eventually, overwhelmed by the evidence, he confessed. He admitted to using substances that day and not thinking clearly. He saw a beautiful young woman alone in the woods and decided she would be the perfect target. Colin had never met or known Celia before, and she was an unintended victim of his violent outburst. Since the death penalty has been abolished in Iowa since 1965, he faced a maximum sentence of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Colin's family attended the trial and shared details about his upbringing. His parents were never married or living together when he was born. For the first 10 years of his life, Colin lived with his father, who was strict with him. His father often sent him to bed alone while he went out to the bar. During this time, only Colin's grandparents looked after him. Later, his mother fought for custody and took Colin to live with her. By then, she had remarried and had 2 more children. They moved to the countryside, believing it was more peaceful. The family maintained strict discipline, and Colin's room was so tidy that they joked he should join the army. Colin was a diligent student, but as a teenager, he grew close to his alcoholic father and began having behavioral issues. His father attempted to discipline him, but Colin didn't listen, leading to his expulsion from the house at age 15. He fell in with a bad crowd, left school, and became addicted to alcohol and drugs. At 18, Colin had a girlfriend twice his age. In May 2015, he was arrested for domestic violence against her, found guilty, and sentenced to 60 days in jail. On another occasion, after being accused of shoplifting, he threatened to return and shoot up the place. Colin's life went out of control, but no one seemed to notice. After the domestic violence case, he was arrested multiple times over the next 2 years for theft, assault, harassment, and attempted burglary. Although he was sent to behavioral intervention courses, they didn't work. In November 2017, Colin was sentenced to 2 years at Mount Pleasant Correctional Facility for burglary in violating probation. Despite having disciplinary issues, including fights with other inmates, he was released on parole after just 7 months in June 2018 due to overcrowding in the prison. Only 3 months after his release, he killed Celia. After being released from prison, Colin was taken home by his mother and stepfather and lived with them. They had reconnected with him during his time in prison through letters. His parents trusted him and gave him an opportunity for a fresh start, believing his promise to avoid drugs and cut ties with bad influences. However, just 2 weeks later, they had to ask him to leave for breaking his promise. Colin then went to Ames, about an hour away from his home. He stayed briefly at the city's only homeless shelter, but there were not enough beds available. Seeking assistance from his mother, she bought him a tent. In his new city, the Ames Police Department soon noticed him. On June 29th, he was arrested for public intoxication. On August 11th, the police received a complaint from a Target store saying that Colin and another homeless man were camping on open land behind the store and were chased away. They then moved to camp in Squaw Creek Park to avoid bothering anyone. According to Colin, the police allowed them to camp there, but police representatives deny this, stating that camping overnight in the park is prohibited. On September 2nd, 15 days before Celia's murder, police were called to a Burger King where Colin threatened customers with a knife but was later released. On September 8th, his mother and stepfather visited to celebrate Colin's 22nd birthday. They took him out for dinner and to a laundromat to wash his clothes. His mother was concerned about his behavior. Colin was quiet and distant, responding to their questions with only one-word answers. They dropped him off at a tent in the park where he was living with another homeless man and then drove home. It was then that Colin confessed to his friend that he wanted to rape and kill a woman. The next morning, Celia was found dead, but she had not been raped. According to the police, he probably didn't have time to commit the act. Colin's parents said it was his own fault. They tried to help him, but it didn't work. He still chose to side with evil. Therefore, on August 23, 2019, Colin Richards was sentenced to life in prison without parole. He is currently serving his sentence at the Story County Jail in Nevada, Iowa. The whole town of Ames mourned Celia's death, with thousands attending a candlelight ceremony to honor she, the talented athlete. Celia's family was devastated by the news of her murder. They were furious that someone with no achievements or aspirations had cruelly taken the life of a talented and promising athlete with a bright future. Collins clearly had no regard for Celia's life. He randomly chose and killed her simply because he felt like it, believing she was an easy target. The Celia family was relieved by the verdict and grateful that the culprit was swiftly caught and could no longer pose a threat to anyone else. Now, he will remain imprisoned forever. Their only regret is allowing their daughter to go so far away, despite it being her dream. Statistically, the U.S. is not safe. The murder rate per capita in the U.S. is 26 times higher than in Spain. In their small town in Spain, there hasn't been a murder in 100 years. Celia's parents have kept her room just as she left it, with one addition, an engineering degree awarded posthumously by the state of Iowa. They often walk through the local golf club and remember when their daughter first started playing the sport there. The community in the small town of Ames, including the university administration and students, was outraged by the crime. The situation was particularly concerning because the golf course was next to a wooded area without any fencing. Due to the golf club's negligence, a girl's life was put in danger. This wasn't the first murder in the neighborhood. Back in 2008, a man was killed in a stabbing incident, and the homeless attacker was convicted of murder. After Celia's tragic death, her boyfriend Carlos found it too painful to stay in a town full of memories of her. He then moved to Florida. Celia's brother was greatly affected by her death, losing a lot of weight from stress. He decided to join the police force after earning a law degree, aiming to help others. This career choice was inspired by his sister, who encouraged him to find his purpose. Hi everyone, thanks for returning. Let's unravel another perplexing mystery. The case of Jordan Worth. Alexander Skeel was born on August 17, 1995, in Kingston upon Hull. He grew up in a loving and supportive family. The boys spent their first months in the hospital in special rooms for premature babies, where they fought against very low body weight. Thankfully, with the help of skilled doctors, the children began to recover. However, Alexander's brother gained weight more quickly, and by their first birthday, he showed almost no signs of being premature. In contrast, Alexander was weaker and dealt with a condition called hydrocephalus, which is the excessive buildup of fluid in the brain, leading to him being classified as disabled. Despite these health challenges from birth, Alexander's intellectual growth was unaffected, and physically, he was similar to his classmates. He even participated actively in sports at school. Their parents adored their sons from a young age, showering them with love and care while investing time and money in their education and overall well-being. After graduating from high school, both brothers enrolled in the prestigious Bedford College to continue their studies. Alexander was intelligent, attractive, and made an effort to go to the gym regularly, which helped him gain attention from women. However, unlike his brother, who actively dated and had a vibrant social life, Alexander was shy and preferred to concentrate on his studies. In college, Alexander experienced love at first sight when he met a stunning girl named Jordan Worth. They were the same age, and Jordan came from a wealthy family. Growing up, she was used to getting what she wanted and rarely faced rejection. She always dressed elegantly, took great care of her appearance, and enjoyed a vibrant social life. Jordan was one of the most popular girls on campus and attracted the attention of many admirers. Besides her studies, she volunteered her time, raising funds and providing aid to local shelters for homeless animals as well as to children facing hunger in Africa. Jordan's efforts to make a positive impact were recognized multiple times. At first, her appeared to be an angel, kind, caring, smart, and beautiful. Alexander fell in love with her instantly but assumed that the outgoing and popular Jordan would never notice him. To his surprise, she was also drawn to him and took the first step to get to know him. Although Jordan was more experienced in relationships, for the shy Alexander, she was his very first love. The couple started dating in 2012 when they were both just 17 years old. Initially, their relationship was thriving. They spent a lot of time together and were nearly inseparable. At college, they were often referred to as the most beautiful couple, which made Jordan feel very flattered. The first 6 months of their relationship were filled with love, romance, and mutual respect. They surprised each other with thoughtful gifts and enjoyed celebrating small but meaningful milestones. Their social media accounts were filled with photos of them together, showcasing their happiness and featuring heartfelt captions and declarations of love. To outsiders, it appeared that they were perfect for each other and destined for a long, happy life together. They quickly decided to move in together and rented an apartment. As they were both still students, their parents provided substantial financial support. Fortunately, their parents were supportive of their relationship. Jordan was particularly fond of Alexander's parents because she came across as a responsible young woman with aspirations to become an art history teacher, leaving a positive impression on everyone she met. As time went on, Jordan's behavior started to change. It began with her increasing demands. Each month, she wanted Alexander to update her on everything he did. She openly checked his personal messages on his phone, email, and social media. She would get jealous for no apparent reason. Although this behavior was concerning, Alexander tried to ignore it because he was in love, and it didn't bother him too much. Even when she insisted he wore only the clothes she bought for him, he dismissed it as her way of showing care. Soon, Jordan began to restrict Alexander's social circle. She decided who he could see and who he could no longer stay in touch with, affecting not just his friends and classmates but also his family members. Despite this control, Jordan never complained to anyone, and they still appeared to be a happy and perfect couple in public and on social media. She began to enjoy her control over him. She deleted contacts from Alexander's phone without his knowledge, blocked his family and friends, and even replied to messages on his behalf, often in a rude and insulting way. Afterward, she deleted these conversations, so Alexander had no idea what he had said to people who no longer wanted to communicate with him. The final reason for the breakup occurred when Alexander's twin brother raised concerns. Jordan started to block their communication. By then, their parents also noticed that Alexander was pulling away from the family, while his girlfriend was avoiding them completely. She refused to visit even on holidays and didn't want to talk on the phone. When they did try to reach her, she was openly rude. In the rare moments when Alexander's mother managed to speak with him, she urged him to break up with his girlfriend, warning that the relationship would lead to trouble. However, Alexander, deeply in love, refused to listen and defended his girlfriend, insisting that she cared for him and meant no harm. The Skeel family soon realized that Jordan had pressured their son to drop out of college, quit sports, and get a job. Meanwhile, she took all the money he earned to spend on her own needs and entertainment. The parents once again tried to talk to their son and persuade him to leave Jordan, but they were unsuccessful. In 2013, during his coming-of-age celebration, Jordan committed a shocking act that went unpunished. That day, she and her friends celebrated at a country hotel. As the evening progressed and guests began to leave, Jordan suddenly vanished without telling anyone. Alexander was distraught as he searched for Jordan, fearing something had happened to her. However, she returned to their room in the morning, heavily intoxicated. When Alexander tried to find out where she had been, she violently lashed out at him with both fists and insults, then laughed. 2 months later, during his own 18th birthday celebration, Jordan started a fight in front of Alexander's family and friends. She assaulted a 15-year-old girl, who was a neighbor well known to the Skeel family and had been invited to the party. Jordan believed the girl was being overly friendly with Alexander, which prompted her to attack, pulling the girl's hair and scratching her face. Jordan was still upset, but it was obvious to everyone what her true nature was. Afterward, her parents and brother urged Alexander to break up with her because of her aggressive and inappropriate behavior. Surprisingly, for the first time, he listened to them and acknowledged that she had indeed overreacted. That same evening, he spoke with her and informed her that he would not be returning to their apartment and would instead stay at his parents' house. After nearly 6 months apart, they reunited and had children together. During that time, Alexander focused on his studies and work, rarely thinking of Jordan. However, on New Year's Eve 2014, Jordan surprised him with a call to share the news that she was pregnant and they would be parents in the spring. Alexander felt both surprised and happy. Jordan apologized for not telling him sooner, explaining that she believed he no longer wanted to see her. When the guy's parents found out they were going to have a grandchild, they were overjoyed and invited Jordan to move in with them. She accepted the offer and moved into the Skeel family home. She officially got married with Alexander, and 3 months later, she and Alexander welcomed a son named William. The young parents were extremely happy, and they enjoyed a peaceful and harmonious life together until around mid-fall 2014. During this time, Jordan genuinely cared for her partner, made an effort to please him, and fell in love with him again. When William was 6 months old, Jordan became pregnant again. During this time, she became moody and emotional, insisting that Alexander move out of his parents' house immediately. Alexander attributed her behavior to hormonal changes but agreed to rent an apartment for them in the city, and they soon moved in. In the summer of 2015, they welcomed their second child, a girl named Alice. Alexander was overjoyed and treated his wife and children with great affection. However, Jordan, feeling secure that Alexander would not leave her, began to reveal her darker side. The turning point occurred after the move. Jordan prohibited her husband from contacting his family and prevented his parents from seeing their grandchildren. Meanwhile, she accepted financial help from them and even had Alexander ask his parents for money. Within a few months, she completely dominated him, breaking his spirit and taking control of his life. Jordan frequently humiliated and insulted her husband, and eventually, she began to hit him. At first, her attacks were not severe, as she wanted to see how he would react. When she realized he would tolerate everything, keep quiet, and face no consequences for her actions, she unleashed her cruelty, revealing her violent tendencies. The trouble began during their house renovation when she was unhappy with everything Alexander did. Frustrated, he remarked that it seemed impossible to satisfy her. In response, she threw a hammer at him, hitting him on the head and causing a deep wound. Dazed and nearly unconscious, he fell to the ground, holding his head as blood streamed down his face. He asked his wife for help or to call an ambulance, but she coldly told him, "Crawl away somewhere and die," and walked into another room to watch TV. Alexander treated his head injury on his own without visiting a doctor or telling anyone. This led Jordan to believe she could do anything without consequences, convinced her husband would never report her actions and would avoid both hospitals and the police. For the next 3 years, Alexander endured constant emotional and physical suffering. He became so depressed that he didn't recognize the threat he was under. Despite this, he continued to work hard to provide for his family, but his frustration and dissatisfaction with his wife grew steadily. Jordan not only controlled him every day but also escalated the cruelty. He was not allowed to sleep on the bed and had to lie on the floor next to the bed, without a blanket or pillow. He was also banned from entering the kitchen and could only eat the leftovers that his wife and children didn't finish. This left Alexander starving. As he was unable to buy food, Jordan had taken all his money. Furthermore, his wife deprived him of sleep and rest, creating a cruel form of entertainment for herself. Whenever he finally fell asleep, she would hit him on the head or pour boiling water on him. He later remembered waking up each time in intense pain, either bleeding or burned. After that, he would tend to his wounds with whatever he could find, while his wife quietly went to bed. Alexander viewed this situation as normal. He felt morally defeated and stopped trying to fight against it. He completely cut off communication with his parents and brother, and his wife frequently asked them for money on his behalf. She also supported her own parents financially, ensuring she could afford whatever she wanted. Alexander lost a significant amount of weight and dropped below 50 pounds. His body was frequently marked by wounds, cuts, burns, and bruises, which drew concern from others. At his workplace, colleagues encouraged him to seek medical help, but his wife insisted he quit his job to avoid being discovered. After he was let go, he became trapped with Jordan, who began to abuse him continuously, leaving him longing for rescue. Although the couple appeared to be happy to outsiders, their home life was filled with horror. Jordan managed social media accounts for her husband, frequently sharing old photos of their family along with captions expressing their love and gratitude for one another. Nobody could have imagined that a woman who looked angelic and was a mother of 2 could transform into a sophisticated monster behind closed doors. She knocked out her husband's teeth and inflicted a deep cut on his arm with a knife. His body also showed signs of burns, but he was unable to go to the hospital. At home, he had only plastic wrap and tape, which he used to bind his wounds. Neighbors often heard screams coming from their house, and some were so alarming that they called the police. However, Jordan always managed to convince the officers that everything was fine between her and her husband. During the next visit by the police, prompted by neighbors' concerns, one officer noticed a man with a fresh wound and blood running down his arm. The man appeared emaciated and had bruises of various sizes on his face. Jordan attempted to explain to the officer that her husband was mentally unstable and sometimes harmed himself. However, this time the police called for paramedics, and Alexander was taken to the hospital. The doctors were shocked by his condition. He was barely alive, and his arm was so severely injured that amputation was a real possibility. Alexander had severe second and third-degree burns covering his body. He weighed just 94 pounds, and his shoulder ligaments were injured from being hit with a screwdriver. He also had a deep cut on his forearm, several knocked-out teeth, and many bruises. During this time, Jordan entered the hospital, insisting that her husband be released to her. She claimed that he was fine and that he had caused all his injuries himself. However, no one believed her distressed claims, and it was decided to take her to the police station for questioning. Initially, Jordan denied any wrongdoing and stuck to her claim that her husband was harming himself. However, when Alexander's parents arrived at the police station after visiting him in the hospital, her attitude changed. She went on to explain in detail the actions she had taken against her husband, saying she had trained him like a dog and that he couldn't escape from her. At the same time, Jordan argued that her husband's behavior provoked her violence, alleging he was cheating on her and intentionally trying to upset her. She also maintained that he was mentally ill and had a tendency to self-harm. The man's parents firmly denied all the claims made against him. However, he hesitated to speak out against his wife at first. It was only after receiving treatment and consulting with a psychologist that Alexander found the courage to share the traumatic experiences he endured at home in recent years. Jordan believed that she would only receive a minor administrative penalty, so she was not particularly concerned about the upcoming trial. After reviewing all the evidence, the judge convicted 22-year-old Jordan of deliberately causing serious harm, both physical and emotional abuse, as well as coercive control. She received a prison sentence of 7.5 years. Her status as a mother of 2 young children did not lessen the severity of her punishment. Jordan was taken aback by this sentence, as the case was unprecedented in the UK. The children were placed in the care of their father and grandparents during their mother's imprisonment. After fully recovering from years of abuse, Alexander began working in the community and is now helping victims of domestic violence. On July 4, 2023, Jordan was released on parole after serving 5 years of her 7.5-year sentence. However, she is not allowed to approach her ex-husband or see their children. She is currently engaged to a bricklayer named Adam Stepp and is getting ready to become a mother for the 3rd time. Welcome back, mystery lovers. Today's case is going to keep you on the edge of your seat. The case of Anna Walsh. Anna Walsh was born on April 18, 1983, in Belgrade, Serbia. She grew up in a cultured family alongside her younger sister. Anna attended the 5th Belgrade Gymnasium, where she distinguished herself as an outstanding student. She then pursued higher education at Belgrade Research University, the oldest and largest university in Serbia, focusing on foreign languages. She earned a master's degree in French language and literature. At 22, Anna graduated and decided to explore new opportunities in the United States, with her family's full support. In 2005, she began her American journey and settled in the U.S. with the goal of advancing her education in hospitality management. She took on administrative positions at renowned hotels, including the Inn at Little Washington in Virginia, which is part of the prestigious Relais and Chateaux collection. Anna's friendly nature, approachability, and strong sense of responsibility helped her quickly rise in her career, earning the respect of her colleagues and managers. Anna was multilingual and skilled at resolving conflicts, which helped her easily connect with others. She was well liked by her colleagues and had a group of friends. Anna took every opportunity to shine in her career. She became a U.S. citizen while keeping her Serbian nationality, earned a high income, and invested in her own home and car. Her travels expanded her perspective, and she was promoted to senior manager. Known for her intelligence, beauty, slender figure, and bright smile, Anna attracted many admirers during her time at the Wheatley Hotel in Lenox, Massachusetts. There, she fell in love with Marcus O'Neill, the hotel's head chef, and they got married in 2009, with Anna adopting his last name. After got married with Marcus, Anna's life takes a turn when she meets Brian Walsh. Brian Walsh, born in July 1975 in Boston, Massachusetts, comes from a prominent and wealthy family. In his younger days, he would often borrow money from friends without paying them back. While in college, he would treat friends to meals at expensive restaurants, but would use various tricks to make sure they ended up paying for him. For years, Brian was estranged from his father, Dr. Thomas Walsh, and this distance continued until Thomas passed away in 2018. Their troubled relationship began when Brian deceitfully withdrew nearly $1 million from his father's personal account and vanished with the money. The father did not report his son to the police and even tried to convince him to return the stolen money. When Brian refused, Thomas cut off all communication with him. At the time of this serious theft, Brian's parents had been divorced for a long time, and his father had started a new family. Thomas decided to completely remove his eldest son from his life and his will. However, after Thomas passed away, Brian quickly asserted his claim and filed a lawsuit, alleging that the will was forged by Thomas' widow and younger children to deny him his rightful inheritance. Unfortunately, he could not provide any evidence to support his claims and did not receive any part of the estate. Many people who knew Brian described him as greedy, malicious, and very cruel. He often resorted to violence and struggled to control his emotions. He would get what he wanted using force, and when he was angry, he became a threat to others. Reports indicate that in the late 2000s, Brian received treatment at a psychiatric clinic to manage his anger, during which he was officially diagnosed with sociopathy. In 2014, a unique love story began when Anna met Brian, a hotel guest. At the time, Anna was married to Marcus O'Neill, who also worked at the hotel. Despite Anna's marriage, Brian was immediately attracted to her and began to pursue her with increasing intensity. Used to getting what he wanted and unwilling to accept rejection, he relentlessly sought Anna's attention. He eventually obtained her phone number and home address, where she lived with her husband, creating a troubling situation for all involved. In 2015, the O'Neill family had to involve the police due to Brian's relentless harassment, which occurred around the clock. He repeatedly pursued Anna, calling her at work, texting her personal phone, and insisting that she divorce her husband to be with him. The situation intensified when Brian threatened to harm Anna and her husband if she did not leave with him. The details that followed are unclear, particularly why Anna ultimately changed her mind. However, a year after, she surprisingly divorced her husband. A few months later, Brian became her second husband. The newlyweds moved into a luxurious home in Casson, Massachusetts, which is about 20 miles southeast of Boston, in a well-off neighborhood. They had 3 sons in quick succession, with the boys being born a couple of years apart. Anna chose not to take maternity leave and successfully balanced her job with being a mother, continuing to advance in her career. She became the regional general manager at Tishman Speyer, a real estate company, where she earned a high salary and became the primary breadwinner for the family. Since her job often required travel to Washington, D.C., she bought another home there in her name, where she stayed during business trips. During these trips, she relied on visiting nannies to help care for her children. What was Brian doing while his wife was busy expanding their family and advancing her career? Brian was unemployed. The $1 million he had once received from his father was running out, and everything his wife earned was carefully registered in her name. Brian was looking for easy ways to make money. Before marrying Anna, he had spent some time in South Korea, where he became friends with a wealthy people whose family owned an impressive art collection. After returning to the United States, Brian kept in touch with this friend, who unexpectedly asked for his help in selling several paintings by the famous artist Andy Warhol. Brian eagerly agreed but chose not only to sell the artworks for a commission, he wanted to profit from the transaction. He had a collection of abstract paintings by a renowned artist, titled Shadow. Brian assessed each painting and gathered the required documentation, including authenticity certificates. He then decided to create copies of both the paintings and the documentation. To do this, he contacted artists who could produce precise replicas of the paintings. Brian convinced the artists that he needed these copies as backups, since each original painting was valued at approximately $250,000. For several years, Brian successfully created and sold fake paintings as if they were originals to collectors from different countries. His scheme came to an end when one of his buyers, an art expert who specializes in Andy Warhol, quickly recognized forgery and took legal action against him. The FBI then launched an investigation, and in April 2021, he pleaded guilty to selling counterfeit art. As part of a deal negotiated by his lawyer, he was placed under house arrest instead of serving time in prison, on the condition that he return the money earned from the sale of the fake paintings to the buyers. Although Brian's movements were heavily restricted, he could leave his house twice a day to drop off and pick up his children from school. He also had 2.5 hours each morning to visit a limited number of approved places nearby, such as stores, pharmacies, and dry cleaners, to buy essential items. On December 31, 2022, the Walsh family was getting ready to celebrate New Year's Eve at home. Only Anna, Brian, and their 3 young sons were present. Because of their age, the boys went to bed early, leaving Anna and Brian at the dinner table. That day, Anna shared her last social media post, where she sent New Year's greetings and mentioned that the past year had been tough, but she and Brian were still together. Anna was supposed to fly to Washington, D.C. for work on January 3rd. However, when she didn't show up for work on January 4th and missed an important deal, her boss, Tishman Speyer, reported her missing to the police. Her phone had also been unreachable for several days. Brian also reported her missing, expressing concern that he had not been able to contact her for several days. According to Brian, he last saw Anna on January 1st. He claimed that she had woken him up early in the morning, saying there were some issues at work and that her boss had asked her to come in earlier than planned. He then believed that his wife had gone to the airport with only a few belongings. However, inconsistencies in the case soon emerged. First, Anna had not purchased, changed, or booked a flight on January 1st, nor had she canceled a flight scheduled for January 3rd. Second, she had not shown up at the airport on either January 1st or January 3rd. Third, how had she left the house? Her personal car was still in the garage, and she had not called a taxi. Brian suggested that she may have hitchhiked, but this theory was not convincing. Brian's statements and behavior raised many questions. His accounts were inconsistent, and he did not seem particularly interested in what was going on. Unable to contact Anna for more than 3 days, he only reported her missing on the 4th day, and only after her workplace called. Brian was considered the prime suspect from the start. However, law enforcement did not have sufficient grounds to arrest him or obtain a search warrant for his family home. They conducted only a cursory search with his permission, but nothing came of it. Brian maintained that he had lived a normal life during those 3 days, visiting shops regularly and doing housework. However, verifying his claims proved difficult. Each time he left the house, he forgot his phone, which he said was often taken away by his older children to play games without permission. On January 5th, police issued a public appeal on television, showing a photo of Anna and asking anyone with information about her whereabouts or fate to contact law enforcement immediately. However, no witnesses came forward. Anna was known to have called her mother and sister one last time on December 31st, making her husband the last person known to have seen her. Surveillance footage from the neighborhood provided no clues. Anna was not captured on any cameras on the morning of January 1st, as if she had never left the house. Her husband, on the other hand, was recorded leaving and returning multiple times, but his destination could not be determined. His claims of a trip to the grocery store were dismissed. His car was not seen in any footage of the route, nor was it spotted in the store. It wasn't until January 8 that Brian was arrested for perjury and taken to the police station for questioning while his home was finally searched. It was discovered that on January 1st, he had visited a hardware store in another area, not on the list of approved places he could visit while under house arrest. There, he spent nearly $500 on a large amount of cleaning supplies, plastic sheeting, duct tape, a mop with a bucket, and utility rags. He paid in cash, perhaps hoping his visit would go unnoticed. The initial search of the family home turned up nothing unusual or suspicious. Everything was in its place, and there were no signs of a struggle or traces of blood. However, when law enforcement descended into the basement, there was no doubt. It was the scene of a gruesome crime. Blood was everywhere, and hidden among the old furniture was a bloody knife and saw wrapped in towels. Brian had previously admitted that on January 3rd, he had visited his mother's house on the other side of town. He claimed that he had violated the terms of his house arrest because his mother needed help with housework due to her poor health. But after the grisly discoveries in the basement, police suspected that along the way, the man may have disposed of evidence or some of his deceased wife's body parts. All the trash cans in the area where he and his wife lived, as well as along the route to his mother's house, were checked. These searches were fruitful, and in one of them, a kitchen axe with traces of dried blood and several bloody towels similar to those found in the basement were discovered. Forensic analysis confirmed that the blood on the towels, knives, axes, and saws in the basement was that of the missing Anna, clearing any remaining doubts about her death. The search history on a laptop and a tablet seized from his home shows disturbing intentions. In the weeks leading up to his wife's disappearance, Brian searched the internet for information about the best states for divorce based on property division. He also looked into whether he could claim ownership of a second home in Washington, D.C. that belonged solely to Anna. This raises suspicions about his motives. At around 4 a.m. on January 1st, the first search made on the tablet was, "How long does it take for a body to start decomposing?" This search was followed by nearly 20 additional queries related to body disposal, such as how to clean up blood, how to dismember a body, whether a body could be identified without teeth, how long DNA can last, and if someone could be charged with a crime if the body was never discovered. All of these searches were conducted on the tablet belonging to his young child, who is the offspring of the woman he brutally harmed. By January 3rd, Brian was already looking up how and when someone can inherit property from a missing person. He seemed confident he could avoid punishment and was preparing to claim the inheritance. On January 18th, he was formally charged with his wife's murder, even though her body had not been found. Prosecutors believe that on the night of January 1st, Brian either deliberately or accidentally killed his wife. They suspect he then dismembered her body in their basement and placed the parts in plastic bags, disposing of them in trash bins around the city over the next few days. The area surrounding the Brian residence and within a few kilometers was carefully searched for evidence. Nearby wastelands, forests, and bodies of water were also investigated, but no findings were made. The defendant pleaded not guilty and did not reveal what he did with the body. Furthermore, it was disclosed that Anna had been feeling unhappy recently and had contemplated divorcing her husband. She expressed this concern multiple times during phone calls with her mother and sister. The day before her disappearance, she called her mother, asking her to fly from Serbia for a few days. However, her mother did not take her daughter seriously and decided to postpone the visit. Brian Walsh's trial is currently ongoing, and he is being held at the Norfolk Correctional Facility, waiting for his next court date. Anna's mother has been monitoring the investigation from Serbia, as she has not traveled to the United States. The Serbian Ministry of Foreign Affairs has reached out to the consulate in New York, which is coordinating with the Norfolk District Attorney's Office to ensure that Anna's mother receives timely updates about the investigation in court hearings. The 3 sons of the Walsh family are currently in state custody. Brian's family members do not want to care for them, mainly due to Anna's mother's age and health issues. Additionally, Anna's sister, who lives in Canada, has also refused to take in her nephews. The only person willing to take the boys is Anna's close friend, Pamela Bond, who prefers to care for them herself rather than see them separated and placed in different foster homes. As the investigation progresses and Brian Walsh's trial continues, it highlights the need to be aware of our relationships and the serious harm that can result from betrayal and deceit. While we do not yet know the final outcome for Brian Walsh, including whether he will face punishment or if Anna's body will ever be discovered, we will always remember Anna as a kind and loving person. Hi everyone, thanks for returning. Let's unravel another perplexing mystery. The case of Schmidt family. Tyler Schmidt was born on November 13, 1979, in Iowa, USA. He spent his childhood in Cedar Falls, a city home to the University of Northern Iowa. Tyler's early interests led him to join the Boy Scouts, where he earned the distinguished rank of Eagle Scout. This experience fostered his lasting love for nature and the outdoors. Growing up, Tyler enjoyed participating in camps organized by the Lutheran Church, which often brought his family together. Outside of school, he developed skills in playing the trumpet. However, his true passions lay in adventure and sports. At Northern Iowa High School in Cedar Falls, Tyler was a member of the cross-country running team and the swim team. During his free time, he also enjoyed outdoor activities such as canoeing, hiking, and snowshoeing. Tyler's interest in computing led him to Missouri's Truman State University, where he pursued a degree in computer science and met the woman who would become his wife, Sarah. Born in Kansas City on March 27, 1980, Sarah grew up near St. Louis with her siblings, Karen, Jane, and Adam, for part of her childhood. Sarah shared Tyler's passion for the outdoors, particularly bird watching and studying insects. Both had been heavily involved in scouting as young people, with Sarah earning the Girl Scouts' highest honor, the Gold Award. She credited her adventurous spirit to her mother, with whom she had gone backpacking in Central America. Given their compatibility and mutual interests, Tyler knew he had found his soulmate when he met Sarah. Sarah was a high-achieving student who excelled both academically and in leadership. As a result of her outstanding leadership skills, the prestigious Truman Scholarship while she was still at Washington High School in Washington, Missouri. This scholarship led her to attend Truman State University, where she met her future husband, Tyler. The couple started dating and eventually got engaged. Both families were supportive of their decision to marry, as they believed the two were meant to be together and start a beautiful family. On June 22, 2002, friends and family gathered at St. John Lutheran Church in Cedar Falls for Tyler and Sarah's special day. Guests took their seats under the guidance of the wedding coordinators, with Tyler's parents and Sarah's mother seated at the front, joined by her nearby siblings. Tyler's uncles and cousins were also in attendance. Sarah stood outside, preparing to make her grand entrance at her wedding ceremony. She was accompanied by her father, who would escort her down the aisle and give her away to her fiancé. The ceremony was a promise of love and commitment between the 22-year-old couple, who vowed to stand by each other until the end of their lives. Following the wedding, Tyler and Sarah embarked on a romantic 10-day honeymoon to the breathtaking Boundary Waters, a wilderness area on the U.S.-Canada border, situated between Minnesota and Ontario. This destination was chosen for its natural beauty, reflecting the couple's shared love of nature. After Tyler and Sarah got married, they focusing on building economic stability and advancing their careers. Following the completion of their bachelor's degrees in Missouri, they relocated to Lawrence and attended the University of Kansas. There, Sarah pursued a master's degree and later worked as a computer science expert, while Tyler divided his time among various roles, including jobs at a supermarket, a delivery company, UPS, and 18 years at a company that handled business billing and payments. During their early years of marriage, Tyler and Sarah maintained a balance between their professional lives and personal adventures. They made time for each other and regularly explored new outdoor destinations. The couple was social and enjoyed hosting family game nights and gathering with friends to play board games. They also participated in local community activities through the Lutheran Church and actively supported the Kansas Jayhawks basketball team, often attending tournaments at the Allen Fieldhouse. 2013 is a bittersweet year for Tyler and Sarah. It was the year Sarah's father unexpectedly passed away due to a heart attack, causing immense grief for his loved ones. However, in the same year, they welcomed their first child, Arlo, after 11 years of marriage. In 2015, the family grew again, with the birth of their beautiful daughter, Lula Schmidt, on September 17th. 3 years later, when their children were 6 and 3, the family decided to relocate to Cedar Falls to be near Tyler's relatives. The community of Cedar Falls provided they a warm welcome, and they quickly became involved in local activities. Tyler maintained his software engineering job, while Sarah started working as a librarian's assistant at the local public library. Their children, Arlo and Lula, began attending preschool at Lincoln Elementary School. Known for their kind and helpful nature, Tyler and Sarah made those around them feel valued. This endearing quality earned them the love and respect of their neighbors and the community. Sarah's friendly and warm personality also made her a beloved figure at the library, where she was admired by colleagues and patrons alike. Tyler and Sarah made it a priority to share their love for the outdoors with their children, Arlo and Lula, encouraging them to explore and appreciate nature. In 2021, the family began going on camping trips, which the kids greatly enjoyed, even with their busy schedules. As a result, they decided to go on these trips as often as possible. However, by mid-2022, Sarah's work hours had increased substantially, which may have affected their ability to continue this family tradition. However, in June 2022, she took a day off to celebrate a special milestone, her 20th wedding anniversary. She also planned a family vacation to Mata Cave State Park in Jackson County, Iowa, for the week of July 11th. To make time for this trip, she set a deadline for a library project. July 26th, Sarah shared her plans with her sister-in-law, Kat, and was looking forward to exploring the park's 13 remarkable caves and beautiful landscapes with her family. On Thursday, July 21st, the Schmidt family embarked on a 140-mile road trip to visit Makata Caves. The family, consisting of Tyler and Sarah, both 42, and their children Arlo, 9, and Lula, 7, arrived at the campsite before 5 p.m. Due to the crowded camping area, the Schmidts decided to set up their tent near the park's entrance. Later that evening, around 7 p.m., another family, the Sherwins, arrived and parked approximately 200 feet away from the Schmidts' tent. Joe, Cecilia, and their 23-year-old son, Anthony, from Nebraska, had been on a week-and-a-half-long camping trip that took them to Michigan's Upper Peninsula. When they were on their way back home, they decided to stop at Makata Caves, setting up 2 tents, one for the parents and another for their son Anthony. Anthony consistently showed great care and consideration for his parents' needs, and earning praise from his mother, who frequently described him as the ideal son, kind, empathetic, and an outstanding student. At the time, Anthony was working on a business venture that involved developing a computer system. He claimed the business had the potential to generate millions and planned to use some of the profits to support his parents financially. However, Cecilia knew very little about the project, as Anthony maintained secrecy and only revealed that he communicated via emails that were heavily encrypted and secure. At Makata Caves, campers had settled in for the night. However, their peaceful night's sleep was disrupted before dawn on July 22nd by the sudden sound of gunshots. A short time earlier, a man wearing black had entered the Schmidt family's tent. Inside, the attacker targeted Tyler and then Sarah. Arlo, who had been asleep, was jolted awake by the screams of his sister Lula. As he turned to see what was happening, he saw blood and was overcome with fear. Managing to escape the tent, Arlo ran to find help. As he fled, he heard the sound of one final gunshot. Cecilia and Joe, from the adjacent campsite, quickly exited their tent due to the commotion. Joe began searching for his son among the other campers, inquiring if anyone had seen him. Meanwhile, Arlo, still panicked, continued running until he met Cecilia and Joe. He was frantic, shouting and asking for help, explaining that his parents had been shot. Concerned for Arlo's safety, Cecilia took his hand, and together they rushed to the park entrance. She was filled with anxiety, knowing her own son was sleeping near the tent where the shots were fired, and feared he might have been hurt or worse. Cecilia called 911 after hearing gunshots and reported the incident to the operator, but struggled to clearly say the park's name, making it difficult to communicate their exact location. Cecilia also explained that she was with a boy who claimed his parents had been shot. During the 23-minute call, the 911 operator asked Cecilia questions, while simultaneously relaying the attack to police and park rangers. The call was briefly dropped, but Cecilia quickly called back. Despite the chaotic situation and her own nervousness, Cecilia managed to remain calm, thanks in part to adrenaline. Once she had provided more specific location details, Cecilia handed the phone to Arlo. Arlo explained to the operator that he had witnessed a horrific scene at his family's campsite. He said the operator that he was in a tent with his parents and sister, but when he woke up, he saw a person wearing black and holding a gun. When asked about his father's location, the boy was silent for a while, then responding that he thought his father was hurt. At 6:30 a.m., police and paramedics arrived, and after locating the Schmidt's tent, they discovered a horrific scene. All the occupants, including Tyler, Sarah, and Lula, were dead. This previously peaceful campsite had quickly become a crime scene. Police immediately launched a search for the shooter, who could potentially still be in the area. Following the attack, authorities promptly evacuated everyone from Makata Caves State Park and nearby Camp Shalom, a Christian summer camp about 1.5 miles away. The evacuees were assembled outside the park for a head count, which revealed that only one person, Anthony Sherwin, was missing. It was also discovered that Anthony was armed. An aerial search by police helicopters led to the discovery of a man's body at 11 a.m. Once officers reached the location, they found the man was deceased. He was identified as Anthony Sherwin. Preliminary investigations pointed to Anthony as the primary suspect in the murders. Authorities believed he had perpetrated the attack on the Schmidt family before taking his own life. The park was temporarily closed by authorities following the incident, with the closure lifted by July 28. The Iowa Department of Natural Resources offered its condolences for what had occurred. A spokesperson for the department expressed deep sadness and disappointment on behalf of the team, acknowledging that the incident had disrupted the long-standing tradition of Iowa families enjoying the state's natural beauty. However, the department remains committed to continuing its work in preserving the state's parks for the millions of families that visit each year. The citizens of Cedar Falls were deeply shocked when they received the news. the atmosphere in the town drastically somber and mournful. Family, friends, acquaintances, and even strangers were filled with grief. A heartfelt message was displayed in a window at the Cedar Falls Public Library, where Sarah had worked, paying tribute to Tyler, Sarah, and Lula, saying they may have left too soon, but their memories would remain forever in the hearts of those who knew them. After hearing of the tragedy, Tyler's software company mourned him, describing him as a highly skilled and dedicated professional who mentored his colleagues. His colleagues were deeply saddened by the news, remembering Tyler's love for his children, especially his child Arlo. The mayor of Cedar Falls shared his grief on Facebook over the loss of the 3 Schmidt family members. He knew Sarah, with whom he had worked on a technology project in the past. He called on the community to support Arlo, the sole survivor of the family, and shared a GoFundMe link for those wishing to donate. The initiative quickly raised more than $276,000 in just a few days. As a sign of respect for Sarah's co-workers, the local authority closed the library for the remainder of the day. The tragedy also drew reactions from other government leaders. The governor of Iowa conveyed her shock and sorrow over the unimaginable tragedy, while a U.S. House representative from Iowa denounced the crime as senseless and horrific. Sarah's family was deeply saddened by her passing. Her sister was particularly hard-hit, finding it impossible to accept that she would no longer be able to talk to Sarah and that she would miss out on seeing her niece grow up. Family members came from as far away as North Dakota, Texas, and Michigan to attend a private funeral service for Sarah at Greenwood Cemetery on August 2nd. A separate celebration of the lives of Tyler, Sarah, and Lula was held at the picnic area of Overman Park, attracting more than 200 people. At the ceremony, Tyler's aunt and the mayor took turns speaking at the podium to express their feelings and share memories of the deceased. The Schmidt family's loved ones struggled to cope with their grief, also as trying to provide comfort and care to Arlo. Meanwhile, authorities pressed on with their investigation into the brutal crime. According to an official update from the Iowa Department of Public Safety, the autopsies revealed crucial information about the victims' causes of death. Tyler sustained both a gunshot wound and multiple sharp force injuries. His wife, Sarah, had multiple sharp force injuries, but no gunshot wound. Tragically, their young daughter, Lula, suffered both a gunshot wound and was strangled. In August 2022, authorities identified Anthony Sherwin, a 23 years old with no prior crimes, as the person responsible for the Schmidt family's murder. He acted alone and later ended his own life. Despite the thorough investigation, police were unable to determine a motive for the attack. According to the Assistant Director of Criminal Investigation, Anthony had no connection to the Schmidt family before or during the time the two parties camped near each other. The Nebraska Police Department helped investigate the incident. During a search of the Sherwin family's apartment in Nebraska, officers did not find a suicide note or any other clues that could explain why Anthony targeted the Schmidt family and himself. A review of Anthony's Facebook page also did not provide any information about the incident or the weapons used. According to the Assistant Director of the Iowa Division of Criminal Investigation, the only confirmed weapon found was an unlicensed, hand-assembled firearm discovered near Anthony's body. This type of firearm is often referred to as a ghost gun. Because these guns lack serial numbers, they can be challenging for authorities to track and regulate. To verify the story, the police spoke with Anthony's parents. They confirmed that their son had created his own gun using instructions he found online. His parents described Anthony as very responsible and stressed that he had never hurt anyone or any animals. They also shared that their family had never owned guns before, but due to increasing crime rates in Nebraska, they had recently decided to acquire them. As they were inexperienced with firearms, they even took classes to learn how to handle them. The parents Anthony's had brought a homemade gun on the trip for protection against crime and possible bear attacks, which they had previously encountered while camping. They planned to dispose of the gun after returning home. Anthony's parents believed he was innocent and wanted to prove it. They thought he was a victim of murder, not the killer. His mother pointed to an autopsy report they obtained, which showed he had been shot twice. This contradicted the police claim that he had been shot only once. Anthony's mother questioned how he could have shot himself twice, which raised doubts about the police theory that he had taken his own life. The family Anthony's questioned the attacker's clothing description, as Cecilia remembered telling the 911 operator that the attacker wore black clothes. This did not match Anthony's clothes, green shorts that she had given him the day before the incident. Furthermore, Cecilia and Joe believe the police have withheld important information from them, such as where Anthony's body was found and whether the gun used to kill the family Schmitz was the same gun used to shoot Anthony. They specifically asked investigators if a ballistic test was conducted to confirm any matches, but received no response. Cecilia expressed her concerns in an email to the media. In the email, she said that her son had so many reasons to live, and she was sure that he would not give up everything in such a way. Cecilia also mentioned that she had seen no signs of him planning such an attack. And in her opinion, Anthony did not have the capability to kill. Furthermore, she believed that her son had no connection to the Schmidt family, which raised more questions. When Cecilia reached out to investigators, their response only added to her confusion. They simply mentioned that it was a random murder. Anthony's parents asked to see the final investigation report so they could arrange for a private review to be conducted. However, they state that they never received a response to this request. Around the same time, in January 2023, a news organization also requested public documents related to the case, but was still waiting for them. According to Iowa's Open Records Law and the Freedom of Information Act, a request was made for various documents related to the case, including incident reports, investigation files, crime scene summaries, and autopsy reports. However, the Iowa Department of Public Safety Commissioner's office responded that these documents were not publicly available. They could only release basic information about the case, which had already been included in the press release and its supplementary links. A few days after the inquiry, the media outlet sent an email to the official asking if the gun Anthony used to kill himself was the same one used in the Schmidt family murders or not. The official did not respond. So far, the police believe Anthony was a random killer who brutally murdered family Schmidt by shooting, stabbing, and strangling them. This conviction stands unless new evidence surfaces to prove otherwise. Anthony was also murdered, and those who knew him described him as kind, studious, and innocent. Following traumatic incident, Arlo, the sole survivor of a massacre, came to live with his relatives in Cedar Falls, CU the law entre qua Sarah. Recently, in an interview, Sarah's brother expressed admiration for Arlo's courage and the young boy's remarkable mental resilience. Following the tragedy, a fundraising page on GoFundMe was established to collect money for Arlo's care and to create a fund that will support his future education. Hello friends, welcome to our channel. Today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you. The case of Kendra Hatcher. Kendra Hatcher was born on February 3, 1980, in Springfield, Sangamon County, Illinois, to Reagan Hatcher and Bonnie Gibson Jameson Cawley. Her parents divorced, and her mother remarried Bruce Jamon. Kendra had 3 sisters, Jamie Kalman, Ashley Lipham, and Melissa Jameson, and 1 brother, Neil Hatcher. She grew up in Pleasant Plains and pursued her studies in dentistry there. Following her divorce in 2010, she relocated to Dallas and started working at Smile Zone Dental Studio. Kendra, who had a strong Christian faith, aimed to use her dental skills to help others. The clinic, for instance, offered free services to disadvantaged children. In her free time, Kendra taught Bible studies and took part in volunteer programs, which involved building churches abroad and offering free dental care to children in Ecuador. Her career quickly took off, and her poor solo life thrived. On May 24, 2015, Kendra started dating Dr. Ricardo Paniagua. They met through a dating app, and from their first date, they became inseparable. Both shared similar values and interests and wanted the same things in life. Ricardo was completing his dermatology residency at the University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center. Despite having been in a relationship for just a few months, he and his girlfriend were already talking about getting married. Unfortunately, a tragic incident in a parking lot claimed her life, ending all their future plans. Investigators who arrived at the massacre site assessed the crime scene and initially suggested a robbery, as Kendra's purse and some valuables were missing. Beside her body, they discovered bullet fragments and a gun magazine. However, evidence from the shooting shifted the focus away from robbery. Kendra was shot twice. One bullet hit her back and another struck her head. The entry wound was at the top of her head, exciton G through the chin, suggesting that Kendra had her hands raised behind her head when she was shot. The murder theory was confirmed after the police obtaining CCTV footage, which helped reconstruct the events. The footage shows a black Jeep Grand Cherokee entering the parking lot at 7:15 p.m. Half an hour later, Kendra arrives home and parks in the same garage. A few minutes later, a man comes up to her, shoots her, and runs to the side, then jumps into the moving black Jeep. The videos were of poor quality and the crime scene couldn't be seen in them. The attackers couldn't be identified, but the vehicle was put on the wanted list. It was decided to release the images of the Jeep and the driver captured by the cameras to the media. The authorities asked the public for help, and that turned out to be effective. A man named Jose Luis Ortiz got in touch with the police. He reported that the car in the images was his, but made it clear that he wasn't involved in the shooting and wasn't drive. The vehicle. When questioned, Jose explained that on the morning of September 2nd, two of his friends, Brenda Delgado and Crystal Cortez, asked him to fix their car and requested to borrow his Jeep until the evening. Jose agreed. He mentioned that later that evening, Brenda called Jose to a restaurant. That same evening, Crystal drove the Jeep come back to Jose's house. Therefore, the man was quite surprised when he saw his Jeep in the news. When Jose saw his Jeep on a TV show, he asked Brenda about it. At first, she said it was a different Jeep on the screen. Then, Brenda mentioned that Crystal had been traveling for work, and she didn't know anything about it. Brenda advised Jose not to tell anyone and just repaint the Jeep. Brenda agreed to pay for the Jeep to be painted. Meanwhile, Jose was waiting for a decision on his U.S. citizenship and wanted to avoid any issues with the police. He understood that Brenda had tricked him, so he went back to the police department to testify. He police monitored all the Jeep's movements that day and identified the two young women whom Jose had mentioned. Brenda Delgado was the first person investigators questioned. She claimed she didn't know Kendra and had never seen her before. When asked about her whereabouts on September 2nd at 7:42 p.m., Brenda provided an alibi, stating that she was at a restaurant with Jose and even presented receipts for the dinner. This raised questions about why someone would keep dinner receipts for so long. Eventually, with detailed investigation, the concealed truth behind the crime was uncovered. The central figure in the investigation was Brenda. She was born into a modest family, Luis and Maria Alato, who immigrated to Dallas from Mexico. Her father worked in a factory. They settled in a low-income neighborhood in southeast Dallas, where Luis found a job in construction, and Maria worked at the U.S. Post Office and cleaned houses. Brenda was their second child and only daughter. She was an excellent student, well-liked by her teachers, and worked part-time at a flower shop and as a waitress. Brenda was very ambitious and dreamed of attending medical school, but unfortunately, her parents couldn't afford the high tuition fees. After graduating from Skyline High School in 2000, she continued to live with her parents while dreaming of a prosperous and beautiful life. To achieve her goals, Brenda worked diligently. She was employed as a dental assistant and also worked at a department in North Park Center. In 2012, Brenda met Ricardo Paniagua and fell in love with him. Their first date, a dream come true for her, was at a Jennifer Lopez concert. In November 2012, just 3 months after meeting, Brenda moved in with Ricardo at his home in Fitzhugh Urban Flats. Ricardo was equally captivated by Brenda and even made an effort to meet her parents. In 2013, she posted on Facebook for his birthday. Brenda later found out she was pregnant, but at Ricardo's urging, she ended the pregnancy, which left her heartbroken. A bit recovered from the decision, Brenda decided to focus on her career and her beloved Ricardo. In the fall of that year, she started attending Sanford. Initially, it appeared that Brenda had moved past the emotional impact of the breakup, but this wasn't true. Her reliance on Ricardo intensified. When Ricardo shared a photo online with his new partner Kendra, who resembled a model, Brenda might feel jealous. Investigators, after gathering details about Brenda and her life, concluded that she had a motive to remove her rival. Ricardo confirmed that Brenda was his ex-girlfriend. They had an on and off relationship from 2012 to 2015, the relationship ending a few months before Ricardo met Kendra. Ricardo believed that he and Brenda remained friends and didn't see any issues between Brenda and Kendra. After all, he had dated other women before meeting Kendra, so why would meeting her affect Brenda? Brenda believed she had come up with the perfect plan to win back her ex-boyfriend and eliminate Kendra from his life. She started by offering him support and showed interest in his relationship with Kendra. In reality, she was aware of all their future plans, and Ricardo mistakenly thought her interest was genuine. Unfortunately, men often misunderstand women and sometimes trust them blindly. Brenda had been plotting her own plan for months. She had opened Ricardo's mail and knew all his plans with Kendra, even when and where they had booked tickets. All of this was infuriating to Brenda. She wanted to get rid of Kendra Hatcher, sincerely believing that she had taken Kendra's place. Brenda transferred Ricardo's account to her phone to monitor him closely. Following Ricardo and Kendra became her main focus in life. She became obsessed with stalking them, eventually quitting her job to dedicate all her time to this pursuit. Over time, Brenda developed a sinister plan to kill Kendra, whom she despised. To carry out this plan, Brenda approached several acquaintances, offering them money to harm Kendra. A mutual acquaintance introduced her to Crystal Cortez, a 21-year-old single mother facing severe financial difficulties. For just $500, Crystal agreed to help her. Following Brenda's instructions, Crystal contacted Christopher Love, who agreed to carry out the crime. Crystal gave Christopher $500 from Brenda along with 2 types of illegal substances. Kendra was being followed by 2 women who wanted to learn her habits and daily schedule to choose the best time and place for their crime. On September 2, 2015, they used Jose's car. Crystal and Christopher waited for Kendra in the parking lot. They didn't follow her home from work because they were worried about getting stuck in traffic. That evening, they successfully carried out their plan. A few days after the crime, Crystal and Christopher were arrested. The suspects denied their guilt and being at the crime scene. However, things changed when Christopher was found with the gun that killed Kendra in the side compartment of the car. Crystal, on the other hand, was nervous and constantly confused in her testimony, giving different testimony about why the SUV appeared in various parts of the city. In the initial questioning, Crystal confessed to being the driver in the parking lot. However, she insisted that she was forced there by an armed carjacker who had entered her SUV and made her drive. Trying to appear innocent, she falsely stated that her son was with her in the car. This claim was later disproved as security cameras did not show any child present. During the interrogation, as more evidence emerged, Crystal altered her testimony and sought to negotiate with the investigators. She agreed to testify against Brenda in exchange for a reduced sentence. Crystal informed the police that Brenda wanted Kendra dead and that the crime was Brenda's idea. Crystal stated that within 2 weeks of meeting Brenda, they started planning the crime. The Polly CE found out that Brenda wasn't just sad because her relationship with Ricardo had ended, she was obsessed and desperate to win him back. She pretended to be happy about being his loyal friend, but her life started falling apart. She began to resent Kendra, believing she had taken her place. According to Crystal, it was at this moment that Brenda decided she wanted to get rid of Kendra Hatcher. That's when a plan to commit the perfect crime hatched in Brenda Delgado's mind. During her testimony, Crystal explained how Brenda came up with the perfect crime and enlisted her help. Together, Brenda and Crystal started planning to kill Kendra. They met several times and came up with various plans. The initial idea was to inject Kendra with illegal drugs or sedatives and then dispose of her. Brenda knew she needed a trustworthy accomplice to avoid suspicion, so she began the search. They drove through the rundown neighborhoods and asked several people for assistance. This is how they met Christ Ofer. He agreed to help and played a significant role in planning the details of the crime. The three of them decided together that the quickest way to kill her was to shoot her. During their collaboration, Crystal disclosed that September 2nd was intentionally selected. Brenda was aware that Kendra and Ricardo were planning a trip to Mexico, so they decided to eliminate her before the vacation. Brenda told Crystal she wanted the crime to appear as a failed robbery. Next, the criminals then selected the location for the murder. For days, they meticulously followed Kendra's movements, recording her every minute to ensure nothing altered for the chosen day. After her work hours, they tracked her path home and planned how to subtly access the apartment complex's secure parking garage. On September 1, 2015, they conducted a final check. On the morning of the crime, Brenda and Crystal picked up the Jeep from Jose and then picked up Christopher. Brenda was dropped off at the library in Caro Wilton to create an alibi, while Crystal and Christopher headed to Kendra's apartment complex. They waited across the street for about 30 minutes before driving to Kendra's workplace. After failing to follow her due to traffic, they went back to the house to wait. When Kendra arrived home, Christopher, wearing gloves, got out of the car, approached her with a gun, and shot her as she exited her vehicle. Crystal mentioned that she didn't witness the shooting but heard it. After that, she drove Christopher home, picked up her son from his grandmother, and later met Brenda at Jose's house to give him the Jeep. As a result, Brenda's dream was fulfilled. She was free from her despised rival and only needed to wait for a message from her beloved Ricardo. Brenda felt delighted that she had executed the perfect crime. Crystal's honest confession and testimony against Brenda clearly proved Brenda's guilt, leading to a swift issuance of an arrest warrant. However, when police went to arrest her, Brenda was not at home. As a dual citizen, she escaped to Mexico. Following her escape, her role in arranging a contract killing was revealed, and she was added to the wanted list. On April 6, 2016, the FBI added Brenda to their list of most wanted fugitives, offering a $100,000 reward for information leading to her capture. She was the only woman on the list at that time and the 9th woman ever to be included. Just 2 days later, Mexican authorities arrested her in Torreon, Coahuila. She was extradited to the United States on October 6, under the condition that she would not face the death penalty. Once in the U.S., she was charged with capital murder in Texas, and her trial began in 2017. During the court hearing, the families of Kendra and Ricardo openly shared their feelings. Witnesses verified Brenda's harmful obsession with her ex-lover and her intentions. In court, Brenda's cousin Moses Martinez discussed his sister's depression following her breakup with Ricardo. He also disclosed that Brenda had offered him money to attack Kendra with a baseball bat, a proposal he declined. At the trial, Jennifer Escobar, Brenda's friend, testified that Brenda was obsessed with Ricardo. She recounted that Brenda would read all his emails and track his movements through his phone. Jennifer informed the jury that Brenda had a copy of his house key and access to his bank accounts. She also revealed that Brenda asked for her help to get rid of the hated Kendra, suggesting methods like injecting something lethal or using a bat to put her in a coma. Brenda offered Jennifer $2,000, a car, and illegal drugs in exchange for her help. Jennifer talked about this offer with her parents and decided to refuse it. It's odd that, when presented with the suggestion to harm or kill someone, but no one reported this threat to the police. Brenda's obsession was highlighted through evidence presented by several associates in court. It was found that Brenda had a motive to want Kendra dead, seeing her as a barrier to reuniting with Ricardo. Evidence revealed that Brenda's obsession grew significantly in the months before Kendra's death. During the hearing, an ATM withdrawal receipt for $500 was presented, which Brenda gave to Crystal as payment for her involvement. Christopher received a cash payment of $600. Cell phone records showed that Brenda, Crystal, and Christopher were together before the crime. Moreover, there were over 99 calls recorded between Brenda and Crystal from August 22 to September 4, demonstrating their constant communication to plan the murder of Kendra. The defendant's attorney attempted to place most of the blame on the actual perpetrators, but this strategy was unsuccessful. The defense claimed that Brenda was not present at the crime scene, offering an alibi and receipts showing she was at a restaurant when the crime occurred. Although Brenda did not plead guilty, the jury disagreed with her defense. Brenda was found guilty of murdering Kendra, and she was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole after just 30 minutes of deliberation. Christopher, who directly committed the murder, admitted his guilt and was sentenced to death. Crystal cooperated with the investigation and pleaded guilty, which resulted in her receiving a 35-year prison sentence with the possibility of parole. Kendra Hatcher's family expressed satisfaction with the court's decision and quietly left the courtroom after the verdict. On the other hand, the Delgado family never believed Brenda could be involved, as they knew her as a loving daughter and a woman with solid family values and Christian principles. In conclusion, the tragic case of Kendra Hatcher underscores the devastating consequences of unchecked jealousy and obsession. Brenda Delgado's relentless pursuit to reclaim her past love led to a senseless crime that ended a life full of promise. The investigation revealed the intricate and disturbing lengths to which Brenda went to orchestrate Kendra's murder, revealing a dark side that was hidden beneath a facade of normalcy. The verdict delivered justice for Kendra and her family, but it also serves as a stark reminder of the profound impact that personal vendettas can have when they spiral out of control. Hello friends, welcome to our channel. Today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you. The case of Marie Carlson. In 1974, a girl named Marie was born into an ordinary Filipino family. Concerned about her future, Marie's mother decided to send her to the United States, hoping her daughter would have a better chance at success. Marie was eventually adopted by an American military family who already had a daughter named Esther. The two girls, close in age, quickly became friends, unaware of their true relationship. Marie lived in a foster home, not knowing that her American father was her biological father. Meanwhile, Esther, the friend with whom Marie shared her games, secrets, and dreams, was actually her biological sister. Neither of them realized their blood relationship. As the two girls grew up, they decided to leave their parents' home to start a new life together in Florida. They rented a cozy apartment near a karaoke club, which quickly became their favorite spot. Marie Carlson had an optimistic outlook on life. She loved the color pink and often used the word beautiful as a guiding principle. In Marie's beautiful world, a new meaning suddenly appeared. It was love. Marie entered a new chapter in her life when she met Jeff. They quickly fell in love, started dating, and eventually got married. Their love was symbolized by the birth of a beautiful daughter, named Paris, reflecting the love and beauty they shared. However, Jeff remained a mysterious man, with a past and family members that Marie knew nothing about. While Marie's personal life was going smoothly, she set a lofty career goal of working for the FBI. To prepare for this challenging job, she began studying criminal law. However, her path to pursuing her dream was fraught with difficulties. Every step forward in her career required great effort. In the end, despite her best efforts, Marie left the police force without accomplishing her original goal. Marie's life, which had been why before, gradually became difficult due to a mental disorder. The root cause was severe sexual abuse she had suffered since childhood, leaving deep psychological trauma. Over time, the mental disorder became more severe, making Marie's daily life a painful ordeal. The trauma of the past had a serious impact on Marie. It not only made her lose her self-esteem but also weakened her feelings for her husband, Jeff. Their once passionate love had cooled down and was filled with disappointment. Unable to overcome the difficulties in their marriage, they decided to divorce, feeling exhausted by the pain they had gone through. The divorce, the failure of her police career, and unsuccessful attempts to find a new job took a toll on Marie. She realized that she could no longer be a good mother to her daughter. To protect Paris from the negative environment, Marie and Jeff, who cared deeply for their daughter, agreed that Jeff would have custody of her. Despite their difficult past, the divorced couple completed their divorce smoothly. Despite the lengthy legal process, both of them tried their best for their little daughter, Paris. The divorce did not cause a rift between Jeff and Marie. They remained friends, and Jeff was always there to support Marie when needed. Marie also tried to see her daughter as often as possible and never missed her birthday. Marie was searching for meaning in life. Despite the hardships she went through, she did not give up. One day, she realized that she needed faith. Marie began attending the Emerald Coast Church founded by James Flanders. From the very first words of his simple and sincere sermon, she felt welcomed and loved. Marie began her new journey in Redemption, a town in Fort Walton Beach, Florida. James and James's colleague, Tanya Flanders, were two kind people who spread warmth to everyone around them with their kindness. They built a church called the Shrine of Mercy, where people could seek help and support. One day, they helped Marie, who was having a hard time in life. For Marie, the church was not only a place of prayer but also became her real home. This place was filled with love, and people were always willing to help each other. Marie found a new family, surrounded by warm affection. She felt free like a bird that had just escaped from a cage. As the days passed, Marie gradually regained her joy in life. Her heart was filled with happiness, and a smile was always on her lips. Marie's eyes shone with new hope, reflecting not only the gentle Florida sunshine. Her health and weight improved, and her soul was filled with happiness. The church was not only a place of worship but also a caring community. Here, Marie found a second family full of love, light, and faith. On the outside, the church looked simple and humble, blending in with other urban structures. Inside, the space was cozy with simple pews. Here, time seemed to stand still, and people were united by their common faith. But, one day, Marie was pregnant. A secret she kept hidden under her loose-fitting dress. She felt ashamed and afraid, sharing it only with a few of her closest friends. In June 2021, at the age of 37, Marie gave birth to her second daughter, Grace. The news quickly spread throughout the small town. The truth about the child's father turned out to be heartbreaking. It was a man Marie had dated for a short time. He had abused her physically and mentally. When he learned that Marie was pregnant, he left without saying goodbye. After experiencing the deep trauma of abandonment, Marie found comfort and new hope in the church. There, she always received strong support. The Flanders family became loyal protectors, surrounding Marie and her young daughter Grace with care and love. They became the real family Marie had always dreamed of. She realized that she was no longer alone. After 3 months since Marie had given birth to her daughter. This should have been a time filled with joy and happiness, but Marie made a shocking decision. She posted a surprise announcement on social media. She was leaving. Not just leaving, Marie decided to cut all ties, leaving behind the city, family, and friends. Marie kept her plans a secret, not wanting anyone to doubt or interfere. She only casually mentioned her dream and expressed her feelings to her family, as if saying goodbye forever. No one knew where she was going or what she was doing. She suddenly disappeared without a trace, leaving her family extremely worried and desperate. They did not know what to do to find her. Marie's mysterious disappearance only added to their anxiety. Jeff, Marie's ex-husband, was worried when his ex-wife went missing. He decided to call the police to look for her. As each day passed, the fear of Marie's fate increased. While everyone was still talking about Marie's disappearance from Fort Walton Beach, a terrifying truth was revealed. She had left without taking her 3-month-old daughter. Marie's sister Esther immediately became suspicious. "It's not like her at all," she said, her voice shaking. She was always protective of her child. Everyone who knew Marie was shocked. She was a model mother, always tenderly caring for 7-year-old Paris. Marie's ex-husband, Jeff, was also surprised to learn that she had stopped caring to Paris. The police could not ignore the incident. When they examined Marie's recent messages, they discovered something unusual. Her writing style was very different from her previous ones. This made them suspect that Marie might have been coerced or that someone was impersonating her. An investigation was launched. Suspicions arose about the ex-boyfriend of her, due to Marie's relationship with this man seemed to be bad. Marie's disappearance remains a mystery. Even Marie's sister Esther has been unable to confirm or deny theories about the case. Police are investigating many complex aspects, including Marie's disappearance, strange text messages, and questions about ex-boyfriend of her. In INT reviews with the police, Tanya and James Flanders provided additional information. They said Marie had gone missing before, often leaving for periods of time and returning without explanation. The family also revealed that Marie suffered from bipolar disorder, which may have caused her sudden mood swings. A few weeks before her disappearance, Marie had fallen into a state of depression. She had started taking medication but had to stop because she was pregnant. Feeling unwell, Marie asked the Flanders to look after her daughter. After lunch, Marie went to rest, while Tanya and Grace went shopping. James came to look after Marie, but when he came, Marie and her car were nowhere to be found. The Flanders immediately began searching. They searched the streets and checked the parking lots of every building. James suddenly had the idea to check the airport. To his surprise, they found Marie's car there. James drove home with the spare key. The investigators immediately checked the car, but FOUND no traces or suspicious evidence. In search of new information, they decided to go to the airport where Marie had left. Their plan was to review the security camera footage in the parking lot. The airport was responsible for storing this information. If they were lucky, they might find Marie's plane ticket, which might have her fingerprints on it. Although they found Marie's ticket, it was of no help to the investigation because there were no important traces on it. Marie's search efforts at the airport did not yield the expected results. A search of her car also turned up no clues, and the parking ticket had no fingerprints. Additionally, the security cameras in the parking lot were not working on the day Marie went missing, making the situation even more difficult. The police are focusing on the mysterious man who is the ex-boyfriend of Marie. Investigators return to the church in the hope of finding clues about the father's identity and role in this complicated case. The church is abuzz with speculation about where Marie sought solace in the past. Parishioners have revealed Marie's dealing with her grief. She was struggling with depression and considering abortion. However, the Flanders were against the decision. They asked Marie to keep the baby and promised to help her. The Flanders' eldest child was grown, but they were desperate for another child. Even though they were in their 40s, they were still eager for the chance to become parents again. Once again, a parishioner declared Grace a gift from heaven and was a reward for the Flanders' kindness in helping Marie. Then, Jeff, Marie's ex-husband, appeared. Although he was not the baby's father, he held an important clue. Jeff revealed that he had noticed Marie was pregnant. When asked about the baby's father, Marie lied and said she was a surrogate mother for the Flanders. So who really was Grace's father? As the investigation deepened, investigators interviewed Tanya's close friends, who were also members of the church, to learn more about the case. Initially, these friends promised Marie to keep the information confidential, but eventually, all the women were forced to reveal the truth. They all confirmed that James was Grace's biological father. It turned out to be a natural pregnancy, and James' wife, Tanya, had to accept the situation silently. This attracted the attention of investigators, leading to the Flanders family being called in for further questioning. Only Tanya appeared and confirmed the information, revealing that she had been in the room when the incident occurred. She described it as having happened with the consent of all parties involved. Tanya emphasized that the important thing in this situation was the relationship between people and higher goals, not the physical aspect. After Marie's disappearance, more terrifying information about the relationship between her, James, and Tanya gradually emerged. In fact, James not only had an affair but also had a parallel relationship with both women, similar to a form of polygamy. Once, they even celebrated the child's birthday together and took a photo, in which James, Tanya, and Marie posed as a happy family. This photo was intended to prove that the ceremony was only to honor Tanya, not related to Marie. However, after investigation and interviews with Tanya's friends, new information came to light that clarified the situation. Although Tanya said Marie was satisfied with her current relationship, the reality changed after Grace was born. Marie's maternal feelings rose strongly, making it impossible for her to easily give up her daughter. According to Marie's friends, she began to be jealous of Tanya. They suspected that Marie did not want to give Grace to Tanya and intended to win James back. These accusations immediately made Tanya the prime suspect. If Marie disappeared, all of Tanya's problems would be solved. She would have the chance to raise Grace alone and continue to be James' beloved wife. It has been 2 months since Marie went missing, but no more clues have been found. Investigators have used many methods, including GPS, to find her. However, in 2011, GPS technology was not yet fully developed, so they had to rely heavily on call and text data from mobile phones. The only thing they know for sure is that Marie was at the airport with James, but not Tanya. Later, Jason, a young priest, came to the police station. He had spoken on behalf of James many times, and one day he decided to speak directly to the investigators. Jason recounted a conversation he had overheard. Shortly after Marie's disappearance, James expressed his sadness and concern. He said that he would have to leave the country because of Marie's disappearance but could not reveal the details. James only mentioned that something terrible had happened during the time when Marie was severely depressed. During that period, James stayed with Marie at the clinic for a few days, while Jason temporarily replaced him. Rumors of Pastor James' illicit relationship spread among the parishioners, and Jason was shocked to learn about James' polygamy. Jason directly asked him about his relationship with Marie. James frankly admitted that he had had sex with both Marie and his wife. James said that he and Marie had argued and fought shortly before she went missing, but he insisted that Marie was still alive when she disappeared. After this conversation, James decided to resign from his pastoral duties and quickly left the city with his family, including Tanya and Grace, to move to Arizona. Recently, Marie's family contacted the Flanders family to retrieve some of her belongings. As a result, investigators seized Marie's phone, which may have contained important information. Although most of the data had been deleted, some of it was recovered. They also found a video of James advertising precious metals on the phone, which aroused the investigators' suspicions. In 2011, committing a crime was easier than it is today. Surveillance cameras were not common, and digital traces could quickly disappear. DNA detection technology was just beginning to develop, making it easier for criminals to get away with their crimes. However, thanks to the development of digital forensics, this case may be solved. 3 years after Marie's disappearance, new software was developed that could recover data from phones and computers. Thanks to this, it was possible to recover messages between Marie and James. These messages showed a completely different side of James. The couple exchanged sensitive pictures, even taken in church. In a final email to James, Marie expressed her desire to leave Fort Walton Beach and not leave her child in what she called a cursed place. The secrets that the Flanders family had kept for so long were exposed. In desperation, James and his lawyer decided to take their last chance. They proposed a deal. If James revealed the location of the victim's body, he would only be charged with manslaughter, which carries a lighter sentence. Marie's family, after years of pain and suffering, agreed to the deal. They just wanted to know the truth and find peace of mind. James shares details about his relationship with Marie and the hardships they went through. Marie suffered from depression, which caused many arguments between them. During one argument, Marie pushed James, and when he tried to calm her down, she accidentally fell to the ground and lost consciousness. This was a fateful moment in their lives. James realized the seriousness of the situation when Marie's heart stopped beating. Although he tried to save her, Marie eventually passed away. This incident left James with deep remorse and regret. After years of fruitless searching, investigators finally found Marie's body in James Flanders' yard. The body was wrapped in a blanket and buried 5 feet underground, only discovered when James showed them the exact location. The discovery shocked everyone involved in the case. James Flanders was sentenced to 15 years in prison for manslaughter, with the possibility of parole after 11 years. His wife, Tanya, was apparently unaware of her husband's crimes and was in complete shock at Marie's death. This was confirmed by a witness, who was later revealed to be the Flanders family's lawyer. Had Marie's body been discovered earlier, experts could have determined the cause of death, which could have affected the investigation. After 5 years, Marie was finally laid to rest at her funeral. It is possible that her sister Esther sang a farewell song for her. However, the fate of little Grace remains a mystery. Currently, Grace lives with her foster mother, Tanya Flanders, in Arizona.